He's charging down the runway. Look at that speed for a man that size. Plants it up. Oh, my goodness, he's still rising.
Charging hard down the runway. Plants in. Massive bend here. He's up. Over. Oh, the pole snap.
Powering down the runway. Pole set. Eyes locked on the bar. Let's go. Plants it. Huge bend. He's up. Inverted. Clearing. Over the top. He got it. He got it.
Here he goes, driving down the runway. Pole steady in his hands. Come on. Massive bend. And he's up. Over the bar.
Comes Jensen barreling down the runway. Look at the speed for a man his size.
Pole goes in. Huge plant. Oh, my. He's still rising. That's
Coming down the runway now. Look at the speed he's carrying for a man of his size.
It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
You know, I had that semi-retired, and then I saw that dumb shit with Dax Harwood actually making a shirt mocking JD from New York. So I think whenever a sicko pisses us off enough, then everybody has to pay the price. And we got to figure out, how do we insult the WWE side of things as well. I got to figure out a good video. Maybe the one with the yeet stuff. Remember that one that we did to kind of make fun of the fans and Jey Uso? We're probably going to have to bring that one back. Obviously, that video is not directed towards everyone, but just the people out there that are a little bit, couple of eggs short of a dozen, I think. And as the shirt says, you giving me agita? You giving me agita? By the way, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. It is Sunday night, December 21st, 2025. Welcome to your latest edition of The Sit Down. I am Don Tony, bringing back the hat by special request. And by the way, I might end up being a little bit wired tonight. Mike from New York, I got a pleasant surprise. He's one of our supporters here. Sent me about 6 boxes of this Starbucks holiday blend. And this is already my 4th in 2 days. I kid you not. I'm addicted to it. And I'm not supposed to drink coffee late at night because I can't sleep. But I'm telling you, anyone out there that has like the Nespresso, the Vitro blend, whatever that, Vertuo, get this. Good shit. Really, really good stuff. I'm amazed on how good it is. It's a holiday blend, it's called. So, salute to everyone out there. I hope everyone is having a good weekend. You know, we're heading into Christmas. Yes?
How do I stop that from playing in the bedroom? Because I'm trying to watch TV. You have that shit on.
Just hold the button on my computer. Just shut the computer off completely. Right in the front, there's a button. Just hold it down until it shuts off. Apparently, I'm streaming live in the other room and my wife can't take it. No joke. Last Sunday, it played live. I didn't know that because I was setting up the show earlier, so the channel's open. Last Sunday, we did about 2.5 hours. She sat through the whole thing and she can't take it. She's like, I can't listen to this. So check this out. What are we doing New Year's Eve? Are we going to stream live New Year's Eve? You know, no simulcasting, fireworks, stuff like that. You know, just do sit down, format, just like we do now. Let's talk about wrestling. Let's talk about the year in review. Reminisce a little bit. Talk about what we want to do in 2026. You guys, if you join me live, you can let me know how your holidays were. What are you looking forward to? Do we give a big middle finger in the asshole of 2025? I think so. 2025, man, what an awful, awful year. Just awful. But, for those who we care about dearly, whether it's somebody we knew personally or someone that we just enjoyed growing up. Life goes on. At some point, I'm going to go. You're going to go. Everybody's going to go. And, it's very, very sad, and it's very, very frustrating. And it's a realization that tomorrow is never guaranteed. But at the end of the day, my goal here, and this has been my motto since 1997, my goal here is to have a good time. An escape. It's an escape for a lot of you. It's an escape for yours truly. We're here about having fun. Sure, we criticize those or things that deserve to be criticized. We praise what we feel deserves to be praised. We poke fun, obviously, and you best damn believe I poke a shitload of fun at myself. If you can't make fun of yourself, then you shouldn't be making fun of others. Now, obviously, some people say, well, you shouldn't be making fun of anybody at all. But in a lighthearted way, it's about just having a couple of laughs. Goof on ourselves. Stop taking shit way too seriously. I'm not opening up with the Dax JD stuff, but I will tell you this. I was reminded of something when I was putting together tonight's show and getting, some media stuff for the Dax stuff. I was reminded that back in January, you remember when AEW started calling Adam Copeland Cope? Remember Cope? And it just didn't click for a lot of us. Reminded me of the movie The Fan with Robert De Niro. Not Cope, but Coop. Remember Coop? The one he bashed over the head with the baseball bat towards the end? Cope. That's something that Dax Harwood probably said to Adam Copeland over the years. That nickname is probably a childhood nickname. My last name is de Blasi. Growing up, my nickname was Blas. And everybody would write in my yearbook, Blasomania is running wild. You'd do a play off your name. As far as a wrestling thing with the shirt, with Cope, I just didn't like it. And a lot of you probably don't remember this. But this tweet that you see on your screen right now with that picture of my dog Bruno, that is a real picture. That's not AI. And all I wrote was that as far as calling Copeland Cope, I wrote, nope. And a whole bunch of people in AEW blocked me, and Dax was right at the top of that list. He took it personally. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. People get that upset. And that's why I brought back the Sick Olympics. Because one thing is for sure, no, we're not going to do the Sting reference. One thing's for sure, nothing's for sure. No, one thing is for sure. I'm going to start calling what Dax does and some sickos do, and even those on the opposite side of the coin. Instead of using bad tactics, I'm going to call them Dax ticks. I'm going to put DAX ticks, Dax ticks. It's like a pussy way out of people ganging up on someone, trying to upset them so much that you try to upset them into canceling them out, into silence. And to me, that is the lowest of the low. It's just awful. And I want to open up with one final comment about last week's Saturday night's main event. I appreciate each and every one of you that spends some of your time listening to what I say. I opine. Since 1997, I opine. I give you my opinion. I analyze. Sometimes we break news, not as much as we used to, but I opine. I analyze. I give you my thoughts. And one thing that I have learned over the years is that a majority of my family out there that's tuning in, and that's all of you, I don't like saying audience or fans. I'm not worthy of that, type of labeling. Your family. But one thing that I've always learned over the years is that a lot of you out there, majority of you, want to be told straight up how I feel. Try to interpret things. Rather than stay in left field and question, why would Cena tap out? Why would Triple H do this? Why would this happen? Why would that happen? I don't get it. It makes no sense. What an awful decision. And if you truly felt that way in your heart, you got my respect entirely. Even if you thought it sucked, even if you thought it was awful, even if you thought you loved it, I respect everybody's views. But one thing I've learned over the years is a lot of you out there come to me to try to make sense of things. Yeah, I could come here and just all night long, that sucks. It sucks. Bullshit. What a fucking dumb finish. Oh, that's awful. Garbage. Blah. Why would WWE, the corporate machine, AAA? I think you all want me to try to interpret it, make sense of it. And, once in a while I joke. And sometimes I don't. I'm not joking. For all of you out there that say to me, DT, what's your thoughts of what Jeff Jarrett said? What's your thoughts of what JD from New York said? What's your thoughts of what Booker T said? What's your thoughts of Jason Solomon and what he said? What's your thoughts of what Eric Bischoff said? What's your thoughts of what Joe Cronin said? I will absolutely answer you every single time. But once in a while, it'd be pretty cool to see some of you go on those pages and say, what's your take on what Don Tony said? And if someone wants to try to play the funny card, like who's Don Tony, whatever. But I want to leave everybody with 1 minute, 60 seconds of John Cena on Cody Rhodes' podcast. And yes, in the future, they both have a future in politics. There's no question about it. John Cena and Cody Rhodes have a future in politics if they want to do that. But I want you to hear 60 seconds of John Cena explaining the finish. And then I want you to hear 60 seconds of what I said last week, back to back. And for everyone out there that does that, as far as analyzing and what do you think about what this person said? If I could close out 2025 in such a proud way, it doesn't mean I agree with how it all went down last week. Doesn't mean I agree 100%. I reminded everyone that Triple H's biggest problem is he didn't read the room. He didn't understand that people are not thinking that deep right now. You don't have to worry about a long-term plan. Yeah, it's bringing Gunther to a nuclear level. We predicted that. A lot of people did. I will also remind everyone, to all of those people that I said, not all of them, but for the ones I said and 10 times over, even the bigger shows like Ariel One and everybody else, I remind you, 3 months ago, everybody said that Gunther was the likely opponent for Cena. 2 months ago, a majority of all the news sites said that Gunther is the favorite to win. 2 weeks before, when Gunther made it official that he was going to face Cena, Gunther opened up at a 70% chance of beating Cena. 7 days in, Gunther had a 77% chance of beating Cena. 5 days in, when we did the news report, Gunther had a 90% chance of winning. Where were all of these people from Jeff Jarrett to Ariel Wine and everybody else for 5 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, going in public and saying, holy Gunther's the 90% chance of winning? WWE, that can't be. Nobody said a thing. Nobody voiced any anger. Nobody complained. Nobody did nothing. So if you were that outraged that Cena lost, why didn't you talk about it day before, 5 days before, 7 days before, 2 months before? I hope these rumors aren't true. 95% of them was silent. Remember that. The next time somebody loses their lunch over something like this, it's entertainment, folks. It's entertainment.
So now I'm out there. They hate the guy I'm working with. They universally cheer me. That is fucking rare. And for the last 5 minutes, everything I preach about story and drama and having a conversation with the audience, the ones I love are in the front row. I know my colleagues are watching on the monitor back there. We're just in a sleeper hole, man.
Yeah. Ed Koski brought that up.
We're just in a sleeper hole.
Sleeper for
but
sleeper.
But we're having that conversation with the audience.
Yeah.
So as I essentially take my last breath, I have struggled. If you think of somebody, the natural causes scenario, or however we picture loss in our life, all of us have been through it. They struggle, they hang on just long enough to make sure to say goodbye to everybody that's been meaningful in their lives. And that whole day was so many unbelievably vulnerable, meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
And then you realize I've connected with everybody I love.
Yeah.
Physically, I feel great. I think it's time to take that last breath.
Yeah.
And that's that. I hate to keep going back morbidly to obituaries, but like, this person died peacefully.
Yeah. You face death with a smile.
Yes. And knowing that, like, man, we are in a good place. We're going to be great going forward. And this is literally like the bottom of the T-shirt says, "I gave everything. Thank you for everything."
Yeah.
And that, in that one moment, that was that going peacefully.
I don't want to compare it to a death, but you ever have a relative, a friend, or you knew someone you went to a funeral from, and they pass away, and you always, once in a while, hear people say, he or she's got a smile on their face, smiling. I've had some relatives that pass away and they got a smile on their face. You know, I have a family member that died many, many years ago that saw her mother, you know, right before she died. She got out of a chair, saw her mother. And when she died, she had a smile on her face. It was like, I'm finally seeing mom again. You know, this is not a death, obviously. But to me, that smile on his face was peace. Okay, I did enough in this match. I gave as much as I could. I'm not giving up. But in real life, you fight, you get knocked down, you get up, you get knocked down, you get up, you get knocked down, you get up. Sometimes you got to just tap. And that's what happened yesterday. It's almost word for word. Does that make me a genius? No, it doesn't. But for 15 plus years, John Cena has been trying to tell everybody how he ticks, what he does. Believe it or not, the upcoming history episode has a interview that John Cena does. I don't want to reveal the show yet, but John Cena, it's a lighthearted interview. It's about 5-6 minutes long. And the video ends with the male host giving John Cena a kiss on the lips, for real. It's part of his shtick. But you hear this interview, it's about 10 years old. And once again, you know, John Cena's like, listen, I show up, whatever they want me to do, I do. You know, John Cena's been telling us this for a long time. It's just that many of us, we hear it, but we don't listen. And for somebody else out there, they may hear it, but they don't want to accept the answer. They don't like the answer. And then you got people in the media world that refuse to accept the answer. They accuse the people of lying. It's just like going into the debut of Netflix. How many people out there? Remember when Cody was bleeding with Dwayne? Remember backstage at the production truck, Mama Rhodes, and Cody was bleeding? That night, people were saying the Attitude Era was back. People were saying that Raw was going TV 14, that now they could do this, now they could do that. And, you know, what did we say? Because you wanted my honest thoughts on it. And I said, if it's not broken, you don't fix it. You know, their biggest income, as far as family entertainment, they're not going to, you know, ruin demographics. They're not going to start making it uncomfortable for kids to watch it. You're not going to do that. And Nick Khan did an interview about 3 months before they went to Netflix. And Nick Khan said, listen, for everyone out there that's saying we're going to go TV 14, we're not. We're not changing our stuff. And people called him a liar. They called him a liar. Why? Because they don't have the adult-minded, you know, less the ego gets in the way. They don't have it in them to just say, you know what, I was wrong. Or I guess they're not doing that. You know, look at even some of the stuff that we called out the last month and a half that was bullshit news. Not even fake news or people got it wrong. It was bullshit news. You see any single one up there, just say, listen, my sources were wrong. Listen, I got it wrong. Listen, I should have listened to that and say that doesn't make sense. Even though this person I trust with news, it doesn't pass the smell test with me. It's just throw it out there. Get as much attention as you possibly can. And then if it ends up being wrong, we just move on to the next story. And I am very, very proud. Doesn't mean I agree how everything went. But this is why I do what I do. This is why I do what I do. And this is why I appreciate each and every one of you out there that invest that time. You know, I think some people out there are just trying to find, the way to get the most attention. Sometimes you got to just sit back and be a fan. If you're truly a hardcore wrestling fan at heart, you don't need to write 35 pages of a recap. You don't have to write a script and read it like a teleprompter, which some people do out there. If you're truly a fan and you take it in and you listen, even when it's things that you don't agree with, you understand it. That's why people to this day, and listen, I'm going to have a few comments about the Sports Illustrated year-end awards that came out. I have some comments about that. But I will tell you this up front. For the last 4 or 5 months, I've been saying that this year is AEW's greatest year. It's their best year so far. And we've heard Tony Khan say that line every year. I can make a montage of every year where Tony Khan says that same remark. But why do I think truly in 2025, this is AEW's best year yet? Because again, for the analysts out there, for the people that do this for a full-time gig, for the people out there that insist that AEW is trying to be on the same level with WWE, they look at it in a business standpoint. Tony Khan is a billionaire 10 times over. And people out there refuse to admit that they were wrong, refuse to think that this is a possibility. Tony Khan is a billionaire 10 times over. His father is an absolute success. This guy could fucking, piss out money and lose his shirt. I've said this when people say, AEW is going to go out of business within 5 years. I'm like, what are you talking about? They could lose $100 million for 20 years. $100 million a year for 20 years. And it still wouldn't even be 15% of what the Khan family is worth. What a lot of people refuse to understand is that Tony Khan, obviously, you have to be successful financially, all right? You have to produce, certain number as far as ratings go. You have to, have some type of level. If you don't generate enough ticket sales, a building is not going to open up so you could have an audience that's more fit for communion, all right? There's obviously a pressure to deliver to a certain point. But at the end of the day, AEW is about happiness, mental health, camaraderie, chemistry. When you see Darby Allin go on Ariel Helwani and say, we cut the cancer out, that's not trying to throw major daggers to some people in wrestling out there, whoever you want to accuse it to be, from Miro to this person, whoever. At the end of the day, everybody's showing up for work. Nobody is fighting. There's no drama in the back. Everybody understands now, I'm not going to ever be, that top guy. Or if I do, it's going to be for a cup of coffee. And that's okay. I get to go home 5 days a week. I get to spend, what the hell was that? I get to spend quality time with my family. I don't have to work an insane schedule. Yeah, we travel here and there, but people understand what their role is there and they're content with it. There are some people out there that are not happy with that. And little by little, those wrestlers will ultimately be released. Unfortunately, there's a lot. Listen, when you see me post the thumbnail 7 months ago about Camille, and people are like, no, she's taking time off for this, she's taking time off for that. And I'm like, no. There's a lot more to this. And then when I posted back in May or June, Deonna, you're next. Not trying to cause controversy. I'm not trying to throw daggers. But Deonna Purrazzo was in WWE, got released from WWE. Tessa Blanchard ended up leaving TNA. She was obviously the heir apparent to Tessa Blanchard. They wanted to create the next Tessa Blanchard, which sounds unfair to Deonna Purrazzo, but they obviously wanted to have that one woman that could dominate itself on top of everyone else, and she did a kick-ass job of it, went to AEW, and AEW doesn't see it the same way. She doesn't fit in that mold. Taya Valkyrie, when Taya Valkyrie got let go from WWE when she was Monet, whatever, you know, look at the comments she said after that. You know, she totally slammed WWE and was just totally about AEW. And then you see after 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you know, the formula. You could sense, you could feel who are some of those who, you know, get Ring of Honor, fit some roles, but are not going to get to the level they were in WWE or should have been in WWE or TNA. And they just get to a certain point. And I don't know how those wrestlers feel in their hearts. My gut feeling, an opinion tells me that they're not ecstatic about how they've been used. You know, Camille, if you heard the history show 2 weeks ago, you know, that 1 minute of comment she said in an interview a year ago, I think is what sealed her fate in a lot of ways in AEW. So my point is that if you go to AEW and you're happy, or you understand that, you know, it's bigger than an indie company, it's obviously got a shitload more money invested in it, and you may not be, you know, at the top of the mountain. You may not be used anywhere near as much as you should. You know, we had some fun a couple of months ago with Viva Van. Viva Van. She's been in that company now for well over a year. And go look up the stats. Go look up her win-loss. Go look up how many times she's been used on Dynamite and Collision and Rampage, I think before it shut down. And, you know, she's great. She does a great job. And then you see how AEW truly uses her. You're like, all right, you know, what's up? The problem is you may be frustrated with it. I may be frustrated with it. Other podcasts may be frustrated with it. But for those wrestlers themselves, they're content. Just like others, from Dax to everyone else. So at the end of the day, when I say that AEW had their greatest year ever, it's because of the foundation, the landscape, the vibe, the environment, the workplace. You know, that's what it's about, first and foremost. Obviously, you want to be successful. Obviously, you want to fill buildings. Obviously, you want to do good in the ratings. You know, it's an ego thing. You want to brag about it. You know, we forget 5.5 years ago when Tony Khan and Jericho and everybody else said, it's all about the ratings. It's about the demos. We heard it out of their mouths. They didn't suddenly 4 years later have a change of view because their ratings started going down. There's an ego value with it. So again, I didn't write any of this down. I ain't reading no script. I could act like Brian Alvarez. You know, you see with his plugs. Hey, if you like what we do, hit that like button and subscribe. Oh, sorry, camera's here. I'm just joking around. Brian, you want people to subscribe? Look in the camera. Look in their eyes. Tell them. You know, I'll keep doing that for laughs. I say that lightheartedly. You ever see his videos? If you like what we do, subscribe and click that like. Look at the fucking camera. And I'm not even doing video all that long. Talk to your audience, not at your audience. But what I just said, I didn't plan on saying that. I didn't write it down. I have no bullet points. The only thing I have written down here is Sports Illustrated's year-end awards and last year's. And for some weird reason, I can't find 2023's. I searched for a half hour online. I can't find Sports Illustrated's 2023 awards. I found Wrestler of the Year, and that was it. And it was Justin Barrasso. This is the only thing I could find for 2023. And it's not Justin Barrasso's, because if you go on Sports Illustrated for 2023, it's Sports Illustrated's Wrestler of the Year. But obviously that list caused a lot of controversy because it was very, very heavy AEW weighted. But let me ask for everybody live. Quick poll. For those that are in the chat that could type something up. What do you want me to open up with first? We could open up with Jericho. We could open up with Tessa. We could open up with Dax JD from New York. Or we could open up with a random interesting thing that I found going back in the day about Adam Rose and the Rosebuds in WWE. So you choose Tessa, Jericho, Dax, or Rosebuds. We'll let everybody, just give me 10 seconds. Hurry up. All right. It's kind of like a toss-up with Jericho. I'll give you the Rosebud one first, then we'll get into Jericho. Then we'll do from there. The Rosebud thing is not news, but as I was putting together the final history episode for season 3, I found something fascinating about the Rosebuds, because this was at the time where Edge and Christian were doing their talk segment. I think it was on Raw. And this is when the Rosebuds started to not listen to Adam Rose. And it was interesting because at that time, Tessa Blanchard was a Rosebud. I kid you not, she was a Rosebud. Very, very cute. Nice shorts, by the way. But when I started to research a little bit about the Rosebuds, I hope everybody's on video or everybody gets a moment to watch video, because I got to show you a picture that I found. And it's going to probably surprise a shitload of people out there. This is a picture of some of the Rosebuds with Adam Rose. And if you look at this picture, this is before any of them obviously made it in wrestling. And in this picture, I'm looking from left to right. I'm looking at Carmella. I'm looking at Becky Lynch. I'm looking at Tucker from Heavy Machinery. I think that's Dana Brooke in the back. We got the vaudevillain, that jerk off that did some stupid stuff. I can't remember his name. You got Elias and you got Braun Strowman. And I just noticed, does Elias have his hands in Braun Strowman's pants? I just noticed that. How crazy is that? Look at that picture of Adam Rose and the Rosebuds. The only one that I don't, Simon Gotch, thank you very much, everybody. Who's the blonde on the bottom? Somebody told me that she did a one in NXT. She was doing like some interview thing or whatever, and she got let go. I don't know her name. She's the only one that's not Summer Rae. It's definitely not Summer Rae. It's not Alexa Bliss. It's someone that I know never really made it. But look at that picture of the Rosebuds. I mean, how fucking crazy is that? That literally almost everybody on that list became a big deal. Dana Brooke is right behind Adam Rose, that has like the eyes wide shut, thing over her eyes, the little mask. That's her. She does look like Kaylee McEnany. That looks, I don't know, that looks like spray tan, right? Yeah, the girl in the red. I don't know who that is. But how amazing is that picture? It's just something I wanted to share. Just, it's kind of crazy to look back on that. And there were others that were Rosebuds that ended up becoming big stars. But you have to admit, Alexa Bliss looks extremely cute in this picture. I mean, who would have ever thought that she'd become arguably the greatest overall performer of all time? I know some people will dispute that, and it's fun debate, whoever you choose. But as far as the 5 tools, every tool, even giving back and helping those of tomorrow, I think Becky Lynch, deserves to be in top 3 overall. I've been saying that for a long time. And by the way, when the PWI Women's 250 came out, or even a week before, you guys remember what I said? Soon as that list comes out and Mercedes Moné is ranked number 1, you're going to see them starting to pull back on Mercedes Moné. She's going to start dropping titles. She dropped another title over the weekend. You're welcome. So this is what I mean. I'm not saying I'm bragging, but it's not difficult if you become a fan first, a true fan first, and not just trying to figure out what's going to be the best material to get the most emotional reactions to what I do. Sure, my audiences are not as big as everybody else's, but I take fucking pride. I take pride in, nailing stuff like that. And sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes we break stuff down and people are like, shut up. Shut up. No. Look, Karrion Kross. When Kross got released, there were people, you know who they are. There were people in the media world that knew him and Scarlett got released, that their contracts were not renewed. And they basically gave Kross an ultimatum. Sign yours now. We'll worry about Scarlett later. Yeah, that's kind of like what a used car person says. Listen, sign the agreement now. We'll figure out, we'll fix that engine later. Yeah, no. That's, semantics. Just sign it. That's what a used car salesman does. But there are people out there in the media world, and you guys know who they are. Don't forget, that knew that Kross got released. And they went on all of their shows. Is this a work? It's a work. Remember my thumbnail? WWE real? Not unreal, but real. Remember we crossed out the un? This is as real as it gets. He was let go. And there were people out there that knew he was let go and said, well, what if it isn't? What if it isn't? But there's always that possibility. No, because if he didn't tell you directly, he told somebody that you work with that told you directly. No, it's real. And you chose to walk that cloudy line for a week just so you could get $38 back. Yeah. That's why in 2026, us and all of you out there, we're going to make our presence, especially on YouTube, a lot more known. When I finish this history show in a week, this opens up about 30 hours of free time that I didn't have before, because that's how much work I put in on a history show every week. We're going to definitely make our presence a little bit bigger here. We're not going to rip anybody. We're not going to make fun of them. That's cheap heat. That's cheap way to get attention. What we're going to do to piss people off is we're going to drop knowledge. We're going to drop common sense. And then you're going to realize a lot. I don't have to prove it to you guys. You guys already tune in. But there's going to be a lot of people out there that be like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Blah, 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 blah. And you're going to see how the sausage is made. That's why, we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. So, all right. Very quickly, Jericho, okay? We're approaching the end of the year, and a lot of people are wondering what Chris Jericho is doing. Nothing personal against Eric Bischoff and a bunch of others out there. I know what he's going to do. No, you don't. Did he tell you? Did his lawyer tell you? Did his family tell you? If he re-signed with AEW or signed with WWE, did they tell you? No. You think you know what he's going to do, but you don't know what he's going to do. No one out there knows what he's going to do other than himself and the people involved. So people are coming to me and saying, DT, what do you think? Now, for the longest, I said, I personally, in my opinion, believe he should re-sign with AEW because WWE does not need Jericho right now. Jericho, when you start thinking about who could his opponents be, when you start really thinking about it, what's he going to do? Beat JD McDonough? I'm a fucking huge fan of JD McDonough, but you could see it. What? Dominik will troll him a little bit. That leads to a match. Is he going to fight a Creed brother? When you start dissecting it, what are they really going to do with Jericho? Have a talking segment every week? Is that really how you want? Jericho did an interview a year ago, and I shared it on this week's history show because this week was the anniversary of it. And I re-listened to that interview, and I really started thinking about what has transpired over the last 12 months. And I could be wrong. I'm not reporting news, but I'm giving you my honest thoughts and just looking at the situation and looking at Jericho's career. And I think Jericho is signing at the end of the year with Nobody. I think Jericho will open up 2026 as a free agent. I think Jericho, with his Fozzy tour, with his cruise ship, if Jericho wants to work, he'll show up in an indie show. Motherfucker's got more than enough money to last him and his family a lifetime. Jericho, when he feels, okay, now the time is right that I go to WWE and finish out my active career, then that'll happen. But my gut feeling is that Jericho will start 2026 with nobody, or AEW brings him back. Remember what I said 7 months ago and people thought I was an idiot? I said that if Jericho leaves AEW, Bryan Danielson will be the one to fill his shoes. In front of the camera, behind the camera. Not necessarily wrestle all that much, but he has that name value that when AEW issues press releases, you have to have that big name, the one at the beginning of the list. You remember all those press releases, even with the Ring of Honor stuff, even with the TV deals, and even when everything else was being negotiated. Jericho was given a Ring of Honor World Championship twice. Of course, he deserves it. He earned it. He's a talent, and it's not like they just handed it to him, but it was done to make it show that Ring of Honor has some big names behind it. And as soon as Ring of Honor's TV deal did not go through, Jericho lost the belt the last time against Bandito. Here's a little point that I've been bringing up on the other shows that no one else has talked about. And no one will ever ask Tony Khan this question because Tony Khan can never answer this question publicly. But when Tony Khan said on more than one occasion, a couple of times over a year ago, that the CW network wanted Ring of Honor, Tony Khan is 100% being honest. CW network and other places wanted Ring of Honor. And Tony Khan, all the answer he will ever give publicly is, it just didn't feel like it was the right fit. Now you say to yourself, Minga, CW, not right fit? What are you talking about? You know, you see the deal they signed with NXT? You know, like, are you kidding me? Ring of Honor would have bigger names overall than NXT. The fact is, and here's what would never be made publicly, is that Tony Khan, I don't want to say worships, but Tony Khan has a deep, deep, deep investment in Warner Brothers Discovery and vice versa. And the thing is that Tony Khan wanted Ring of Honor to be on Warner Brothers Discovery's platform. And when other networks out there made decent offers, you know, this is not like an eBay auction that nobody's bidding on something. His thing's worth $100, but I give you $5. You know, you could try to win an auction at very, very cheap. When WWE heard that Okada was available and Ospreay was available and others, you know, didn't really fit in what they wanted to do. Sure, some wrestling fans, I gotta see Seth Rollins and Okada at WrestleMania 39. I must see that. But the majority of fans knew that that's not fitting into the program when you see how WWE does things. So if WWE could have gotten Okada for cheap, yeah, they would have signed him. Look up Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee was offered more money to work in AEW. And Dragon Lee took less money to go to WWE. Stephanie Vaquer took less money in WWE because of the bigger picture. So if WWE could have gotten Okada and Ospreay and others on the cheap, they would have signed them. It just wasn't like, what was it? Daniel Garcia. WWE is horny to sign Daniel Garcia. That's how people report it. WWE is horny to sign Daniel Garcia. But in the end, Daniel Garcia chose AEW. They were horny to sign Daniel Garcia for a box of Starbucks. You know, not that little, but you see my point. If you could get something on the cheap, of course, yeah. Crazy, of course we'd do that. But my point is, when you go back to Tony Khan, he didn't want to sign with an outside network that could possibly piss off Warner Brothers Discovery. That's why those networks were not a fit. because it didn't have David Zaslav's name involved. That's why Ring of Honor didn't go anywhere else. Now, I have nothing to substantiate that, but common fucking sense will tell you, why wouldn't you, what do you want? How bigger than CW? You remember the stuff with Fox? Fox is getting this, Fox you with that stuff. These are people that are wishing certain things, but at the end of the day, if it was going to go against Warner Bros., you know why the stuff with Fox failed through? Remember that network, Venue Sports? Remember Venue Sports? It was supposed to be Fox. It was supposed to be Warner Brothers Discovery and something else. And it fell through. As soon as that fell through, nothing was happening. Oh, Fox Shockwave. Take note, guys. I have nothing written down. Everything's from here and here. If you pay attention and you let it sink in and you try to understand things, it's not hard to put two and two together. So now Jericho, we get to Jericho. Jericho, at this stage of the game, doesn't need to prove himself anymore. Doesn't need that kind of grind unless he wants it. Here's what Jericho said a year ago to Hot 97 about retirement. Listen closely. There is a line in there that you'll be like, oh, you'll roll your eyes like me. And if you're watching video, you'll see me roll my eyes when you hear, he said one little line, and I was like, yeah, okay, Chris, but listen to this, because I think this gives you a good idea of what Jericho could be thinking going into 2026. Where is my clip? Where are you? There you are.
You're closer to the end of your career than you are to the beginning. Have you thought about yet how you want to close it out?
I really haven't, man, because it could end tomorrow. I mean, Sting quit at 65. The times have changed now in wrestling because there's so much money involved from a television standpoint, and it's still a very star power driven business. It always has been. So you could stay in this job a lot longer than you ever thought you would, as long as you're healthy and still can perform. So I don't know. And I haven't really thought about that. I've never been the guy who's like year-long retirement ceremony. That seems a little bit kind of like, But having said that, going back to rock and roll, huge Iron Maiden fan, and they announced in the morning that Nico McBrain, their drummer from 42 Years, was retiring that night. And then the next day announced the new drummer. You had no time. It was like morning, Nico's retiring, last show tonight, tomorrow new drummer. Like, what? So there might be some merit to doing a final show, but I don't think about that stuff. I really live in what's going on right now. My Sid Vicious, Sex Pistols attitude is like, I'll just disappear and no one will ever see me again. But I don't know if I'd be able to do that. So I'm sure when the time is right, I'll know it and we'll figure out a way to do it and then go from there, But when I retire, it'll be, I'm retiring. I don't want to do the one where you come back. So I might never.
So you want to stick to this is the match and then I'm done after this. You're not trying to.
Yes. So why put that on yourself? I mean, I mentioned the Scorpions. They had a retirement tour 10 years ago, and when it was done, they went, we don't want to retire anymore.
Cher's had like 30.
Yeah, Kiss did it. Ozzy did it. So it's like, why? Who's never done that? The Stones. Stones are in their 80s. They've never had a retirement tour, and when they're ready to be done, I'm sure they'll be done. But to me, it's like, why put that pressure on yourself to say that? So to me, maybe I'll just stop wrestling, and maybe 5 years from now, I might want to have another match. Maybe not, but it seems like there's a lot of pressure on it. And what happens if you have your retirement match and it sucks? I mean, well, then you'd be like, well, then I have to have another one now. Yeah.
But I think over the last, let's say, decade or so, and we'll wrap this up, but over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of money involved in those retirement matches.
Sure there has, yeah.
So, I mean, that's got to be, just from the Chris Jericho business sense, that's got to be tempting as hell, dude.
It is, but I've never done anything for money. Honestly, never have. Okay. When I was 19, I was wrestling not for money because there was no money to be made. I was putting 55 cents in gas in my car because that's all I had. So if you do stuff that you love, the money always follows. If you do something for money, it usually never works out the way that you want it to. So to me, I'll know when it's time and then we'll just go from there. But for right now, I'm still enjoying this at the highest of levels that you could enjoy something. And people go, do you still enjoy it? If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
Spot on, man. And that was only a year ago. So, Jericho knew a year ago how much money TKO and WWE is making. This didn't just happen overnight. Yeah, ticket prices have skyrocketed over the year, but WWE was making an insane amount of money a year ago. Jericho knows the business. He knows what's going on. But listening to that and thinking about what he's already advertising for 2026, I think Jericho is going to kick back and take it easy, take a little bit of a break, do some of the things he wants to do. And if he wants to wrestle, any show would be more than happy to bring him on. And guess what? I guarantee you Jericho probably would once in a while work a show for next to nothing if he just wants to do it. And look, he could still sign with AEW, but unless something dramatically changed with Jericho over the last 12 months, I just don't feel right now is the time for the retirement. We just went through Cena. You got AJ Styles, who's going to be retiring, and that could be happening much sooner in 2026 than people realize. I think people are now starting to think that when somebody says they're going to retire in a year, they think they mean at the end of the year. I don't think AJ Styles is retiring at the end of the year. I think it is happening in the first or second quarter of 2026. I have no idea. But what I'm saying is that, WWE does not want to start this trend of having a, retirement tour, every 6 to 8 months, and at the same time, I don't think Jericho would want to go out the way that Goldberg did. A lot of people don't realize, and trust me, I was a huge fan of Goldberg during, his career in the late 90s, early 2000s when WWE brought him in. That was a shitload of fun, but Goldberg for many, many years has been given the middle finger to WWE. It's just that people are starting to pay more attention to it recently, and him recently telling Gage, his son, no NIL deal. You hold out. It's peanuts. Goldberg talks about how the last 20 years he hasn't been thrilled with WWE. So when WWE doesn't really break down his door for a retirement, he gets what he gets. It's unfortunate that it aired on NBC. Because obviously, and trust me, everybody in the fucking media world knew that show was going off the air at 10 o'clock. There was no overrun. This was not being treated like a sports show that it goes overtime. That was never the case. Yeah, it's fucked up with Goldberg, but Goldberg got more people tuning in on YouTube and on social media than they would have on NBC. What would you rather had it, Goldberg? Rather had NBC and 1.1 million people seeing your speech and that's it? It's not available nowhere else? Or it gets cut off the air and people are a little bit annoyed of it and they want to see what you said and they might have just tuned in just out of curiosity. Now you got millions and millions and millions of people who watched it. So Jericho, I don't think WWE is gonna have him go out like they did with Goldberg. But at the same time, I don't see WWE, because look, Randy Orton, I think people say like 5 years. Nobody knows what Brock Lesnar. Oh, SummerSlam in Minnesota. Nobody knows what's on Brock Lesnar's mind. Maybe Brock wants to retire because Vince has nothing to do with it anymore. Maybe Brock's like, I don't give a fuck. I got my money. I don't need this. Vince is not there anymore. I don't want to do it. I don't want to work for TKO. We don't know. We don't know what's going on in these people's heads. But Jericho, it's about making moments now. For Jericho, what he has left to prove in his on-air career is making moments. And the question is, if he were to come into WWE, what do you see him doing? When people out there say, oh, he's going back to WWE, well, what do you think he's going to do? Is he going to wrestle all that much? Who is he going to fight? Who's he going to have a storyline with? Do you want Jericho to just be job guy to help the stars of tomorrow? It's not as easy as it sounds. And that's why I personally think, and I keep saying that if Jericho was to go to any company, he should stay with AEW for another year or two. Because his value behind the scenes is very, very important. Jericho is a very, very important person behind the scenes. The only reason why people don't talk about it all that much is because they're either not interested of that or they just don't know because they're not there to see it. But Jericho is a very important person behind the scenes. And Danielson will be the one replacing that person if Jericho doesn't come back. So, all right. Very quickly, we got to give some super shout outs because they did contribute to the show a little bit. So I owe it to them. Ronnie C., Merry Christmas, DT. Some biscuit money for the doggies. Thank you, my friend. They will enjoy it. What's my thoughts on Mick Foley cutting ties with WWE? Oh, boy. Oof. All right. I'll summarize it like this. You all know this loaded question. I'm just trying to summarize it in my mind. You all know what Foley recently did. He's very upset at Trump, what he said about Rob Reiner's death. And, you know, he brought up the treatment of illegal immigrants, this and that. I've seen people like Jim Cornette do a video segment on YouTube with a thumbnail where the cartoon Jim Cornette is like. Then I've seen people vilify Mick Foley. Mick, what about all the atrocities that Biden did? What about Biden's camp? Fucking signing, at the very end, the executive orders. You know, all those granting, releases, to all those murderers and all those felons that right before he left office, where was the complaints about that? What about this? What about the sex trafficking? What about all this other stuff? You were very silent with that. My point is, Mick Foley's reasons don't have to go to my level, Jim Cornette's level, all of your levels out there. Mick Foley feels in his heart that what Donald Trump has been doing is enough for him to cut ties with WWE. And that's his right. Do I agree with it? I don't know if I agree with it or not. I respect it. But again, there are definitely holes everywhere because you will find shit wrong with everybody on this side and on this side. My honest take is this, and I'll keep this very brief. What happened to Rob Reiner is a tragedy. Rob Reiner for 10 years has been saying atrocious stuff about Donald Trump. I'm not sticking up for Trump. I'm making a point. Do I think anyone out there tried to end Donald Trump's life because of what Rob Reiner said? No. But when Rob Reiner says it, a shitload of other performers do it, when athletes do it, when politicians do it, when radical people do it, when a whole bunch of people on social media say it, some sicko out there is going to see enough people saying it and they're going to think, oh, I'm a hero. So here's my point. Even though Rob Reiner has said atrocious stuff to Trump, Trump should have just kept it to himself. I don't care what Rob Reiner said about you. Let other people tear him down. Be the bigger person. You don't have to send condolences. You could keep silent and let other people interpret why you're not saying a thing about it. That's my opinion. And I'll say one last thing in closing. A lot of you know that guy, Charlie Kirk, the guy that got assassinated earlier this year. A lot of you don't agree with his views. There's a lot of things about Charlie Kirk that I didn't agree with. There's a lot of things that I did agree with. Here's my point. For everybody on the left that were making fun of his death or celebrated his death, and that pissed off Trump, and that pissed off a lot of people, and it pissed off people on the left also that it was like, come on, you got to show a little bit of, condolences here. You would just shut up. If you want the radical left to stop saying horrible stuff about Charlie Kirk, then on the right, you also need to make an example. If Trump don't want the hard left, to say terrible things about Charlie Kirk, you can't do it yourself when it comes to Rob Reiner. So that's my point. It was wrong when people were saying shit about Charlie Kirk. It's just as wrong when people were saying that about Rob Reiner. I don't agree with Rob Reiner. I don't like politics. I fucking hate it. I don't like talking about it. But if that's what pushed Foley over the edge, fine. If Foley truly believes that, illegal immigrants that have not committed heinous crimes, people who have not committed heinous crimes are being pulled out of their houses and deported, show me a couple of examples. The only example that I keep being fed to me is that Abrego guy. We have not seen that moment yet of a little kid, being pulled out of this and that. Yeah, there's people being deported and they want their kids to go with them. But I'm not defending it. All I'm saying is that if you truly think that people who, I've said this many times, I feel that people who came here illegally and have tried to do the right thing, to earn a living, to raise a family, and came to this country because our government looked the other way, allow them the chance to stay. Give them a temporary ID. You got 5 years. If you commit no crimes and you pay your taxes and you get reviewed in 5 years, and as long as you haven't done nothing, you get 5 years extended. And you do that, and then after 20 years, you're good. You become an American citizen. I think our government for decades looked the other way. And I'm sorry, I don't know what it's like, but all I know is that if I'm poor as fuck and I'm living in Italy and I have no green card or anything else, and hey, I want to come to America, I want to make money, and I want to take care of my family. Oh, look, Antonio, they're not checking right now. Antonio, here's your chance. You could go on the boat. You could go on the boat to come to America, and you could make your money and take care of your family. I get on the fucking boat, and I'm past the Statue of Liberty. Welcome to America, Antonio. Got no idea. I ain't got nothing, but now I start working, and I start making money, and I'm trying to raise my family. I meet someone here. I have a couple of kids, and I'm doing the right thing. Not getting in trouble. I'm working hard. I'm paying my taxes. And then after 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 20 years, government decides, no, you came here legally. You got to go. That's fucked up. But I haven't seen many examples of that. So again, that's Foley's decision. That's his reasoning. Whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, that's his right. That's my honest take on it. Plain and simple. My father, his birthday is January 6th. My father came to this country. My father was born on December 25th. My father came to this country when he was 12 days old. They put his birth certificate January 6th, which is the day he arrived on the boat. My father came here in 1949, and he came the right way. But the thing is, my father came to this country as a toddler, not even an infant, newborn, 12 days old. My grandfather brought him to America because my grandfather wanted to try to have a better life for my grandmother, and my father. And my grandfather had 2 other kids as well. 3 kids, excuse me. My grandfather had 4 kids, and he brought them to America. My grandmother was in Italy, and my grandfather brought my grandmother, and my father was a newborn, and brought them on the boat. They came to America, and the rest is history. But the point is, my grandfather came to America to give my family, my father and his siblings, a better life that he could offer in Italy. When the best person I could compare it to in wrestling is if you ever look at the old stories that Bruno Sammartino used to talk about in the mountains and how life was a struggle back in the 30s, that is real. That is absolutely real. Bruno and my grandfather would have been pretty much similar age. My grandfather a little bit older, but that was real, trying to escape, the Nazis and everything else. So people come to this country because it's desperation. I can't wait 2 years to become legal. I got to feed my family now. I got to do what I do. So I'm not a politician. So even though what I say may sound like it makes sense, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. So, if that's what Foley feels, I respect it. I may not agree with everything, but I respect it. So thank you for that. Chainsaw Charlie, Merry Christmas. Please do the Bleacher Report. What culture impersonation? When I get to the top 10 wrestlers of 2024, I will do it for you. I think I just did it, but I'm surprised at how many people get a good laugh. I've had quite a few of you that live in the United Kingdom that laugh at it. It's nothing heinous, but those lists on YouTube are horrific, especially over the years. Just some of the ones that are out there, you just hear these deep accents. And yeah, I know a lot of you out there like, what about you, Don Tony? What about your accent? Some of the words I say, a lot of you bring up. Somebody said recently, I end everything with the letter R. It's the way I talk. But, your accents, some of you out there, and especially these lists, are horrendous. And trust me, I didn't rehearse that. I didn't go to my wife, hey, honey, what do you think about this impersonation about somebody in England? The top 10 of the worst gimmicks of all time. If I would have done it, my wife would have said, no sex in the champagne room. In every room that I go into, there'd be a sign that would say champagne room. What about the champagne room? All right, so thank you for that. Thank you, Charlie. All right. You guys want me to tackle Tessa really quick? You want me to tackle Tessa? Tessa Blanchard. Let me get this, Charlie. Charlie, none against you, Charlie, but we got to get you off the screen for a minute. Why do I not see you? Okay, there you are. Bye, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie. That was a tuna fish commercial back in the day. There you go. There you go. All right. Tessa Blanchard, be very, very quick about this. Tessa Blanchard. Tessa is getting a little bit of buzz right now because of a post that she said on social media. It's funny because there's some wrestling news outlets out there that I realized, and most of them are very young. I realize that they truly don't know what being a racist is. And I'll explain why. Tessa Blanchard wrote this on X. Quote, I'm not perfect, made plenty of mistakes in my life. Racism is not one of them, nor that it's ever been in my heart. An incident from 10 years ago has continuously gotten twisted into something that race had absolutely nothing to do with because of the social climate. I'm tired of being used as clickbait. Move on. That's what Tessa said. And she's obviously getting hammered online because of it. And I looked at some of the reporting, and the way some people are reporting it is Tessa Blanchard claims she's never been a racist. And then I realized I don't think those people truly know what being a racist is. Being a racist, and I'm not going to Google the Merriam-Webster dictionary version of it. I'm going to give you the Don Tony definition of it. To me, being a racist is you have anger in your heart and you feel that your race is superior than other races out there. To me, that's what racism is. When you look down at someone and you treat someone lesser because simply they're a different race. That's racism for me. All right. Kevin Castle, God rest his soul, miss him dearly. He summarized Tessa Blanchard better than anyone that I have seen. He said, Tessa Blanchard is not a racist. Tessa Blanchard is an asshole. I don't know what Tessa Blanchard is in 2025. All I do know is that she made men's with La Rosa Negra many, 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 many years ago. There's been no incidents before that. There's been no incidents after that. Trust me, there are enough people in wrestling that if they can get any dirt on Tessa Blanchard, and trust me, with AI soon, AI and a little bit of editing make it seem like it's a 15-year-old video, VHS quality. Tessa, just trust me, someone's going to attempt it. We predicted with the AI stuff, but I do believe that AI will ultimately cure a lot of cancers and other stuff. It's going to fuck up a lot of medical companies out there. We can't cure cancer. We need to have the medicine, because if cancer is cured, then you don't need the medicine no more. Trust me, that's the future. A lot of good will come out of it, and a lot of fucked up shit as well. But there are people in wrestling that if they can get any dirt on Tessa, any supposed victim out there, they would be out there to try to get Tessa out of wrestling forever. And that hasn't happened. There are people in wrestling that hate Tessa because she's a bitch. She's an asshole. Again, I don't know Tessa personally. I don't know how much she has grown up and changed over the years. But there's been a shitload of assholes in wrestling, a lot of assholes that are even some that are champion right now in WWE that were big time major assholes back then. Big Spaceballs with Dark Helmet, major asshole. Trust me, there's a world heavyweight champion that 15 years ago, a lot of people thought, wow, what an asshole. What an asshole. And guess what? He grew up. He got older, got married, just changed a lot of his views. I think back to the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior, queer doesn't make the world work. Remember the wild shit that he would say. And then as time went on, he was with his wife, started looking at things differently. People didn't buy it. People thought, he's full of shit. And people that knew him like, no, trust me, he's really changed. And after a while, people realized, wow, he is a lot different. And he became very revered. And unfortunately, he died tragically. Some other people out there, we brought up Hogan last week. Hogan, deep in his heart, may not have a deep hatred for people who are black. But you were very upset that your daughter was involved with somebody who was black. So, you may not have that in your heart. You may be more upset you got caught than anything else. But you never tried to show people out there that, listen, I'm not a racist. I don't look at people who are black less than anyone else. But understand and give the reasons why you said what you said and explain it. I've said this before. When I was in my teens and 20s, in the 90s, you've seen pictures of me back then. I was Jersey Shore before Jersey Shore ever became a thing, and I'm not proud of that. But you went to a club in the late 80s, early 90s, and you got all these Cougines and Guidos and people who think that they're connected with the mob and John Gotti wannabes and all that stuff. How do you hurt somebody's feelings? You go to a club, I'm Italian, you go to a bar in Howard Beach, and there's a whole bunch of Italian, Guidettes there, and you're a fucking 22-year-old Italian guy trying to hit on all the ladies, and you think you're Mr. Macho and everything, and you want to piss off that person to the biggest degree, what do? You make fun of these Italian, you don't care about that. Everybody else is Italian there. You make fun of his Sergio Tacchini outfit. Who gives a shit about that? He didn't make the outfit. No, you question his manhood. And you do it in front of women. That's the ultimate diss you could give someone. You get into a road rage incident with someone, and that person happens to be a different nationality. And what people say, who taught you how to drive? Go back to your country. Person could have been born in the United States. But that was the stereotype. Like, how can I upset this person as much as I possibly can? Some people would bring up color. Some people would bring up sexuality. Some people would bring up race. Some people would and none of that is acceptable. But were they doing it because they hate gays? Do they hate blacks? Do they hate Italians? Do they hate whites? No, they're just trying to figure out, how do I piss this motherfucker off the most I possibly can? It's not right. But that's the mentality. Look at me. Look at me. I've never told this publicly, but when I got married in 1999 and I had the marriage annulled within 6 months, never happened. Never happened. It's like Jericho with Triple H. It never happened. I got into a road rage incident with someone, and I got out of the car, and my wife ex was there, and I was yelling at the guy, and the guy looked at me and he says, "Get in your car, you fat fuck." And I looked at my wife. My wife was like, she looked like she was about to hysterically laugh. And it was the worst that I had ever felt. I felt like this. And that's what that guy reached for at that time. I mean, I was much heavier at that time. But you sometimes, in the heat of the moment, it's not that you hate this, you hate that, you hate this, but you try to find what would hurt someone the most. And, you know, unfortunately, you may not have had it in your heart, but you still upset a lot of people. And that's why I always am pissed that Hulk Hogan did not go further to try to inspire others to do better, to, you know, explain why you said what you said. So with Tessa Blanchard, plain and simple, Tessa Blanchard was an asshole. I don't know if she still is, but there is nothing, yelling at someone, whether she brought up color or anything else, it's an awful, disgusting thing to do, period. But when people are saying, Tessa claims she's never been racist before, you know, racist isn't a one-time thing. You know, one time only, you get a freebie, one time only, you could be a racist. No, racist is at your core. Racism is in your heart. Racism is in your soul. I don't know what's in that soul for Tessa Blanchard. All I know is that for all the years she's been in and around the wrestling, we only know of that one incident. We've heard of other incidents, didn't involve race, didn't involve color. Just an asshole. So when she writes what she writes, I don't blame her. I don't blame her. People don't like her, and they will hold on to the Rosa Negra situation because that's all they got. That's all they got. And that's kind of fucked up, because in this world, I always believe in redemption. You know, a lot of people have done some awful things when they were younger. You know, I was recently reminiscing on the incident with Ahmed Johnson and Booker T. When Ahmed Johnson decided to start saying a lot of awful shit about Booker T and bringing up Booker T's, you know, criminal background, and Booker T was a kid. It's like, yeah, I made mistakes. I learned by it, I grew by it, and I try to help others to this day. Try to set an example. Are we supposed to keep using that to bring him down? No, you believe in redemption. There are people out there that will not allow redemption to Tessa Blanchard. And that's kind of fucked up, because, yeah, you can be an asshole. And there are assholes in wrestling. From wrestlers to promoters to fans, there are assholes. But, you know, you have no right to try to cancel that person out simply because you don't like them. You know, you don't like what they say. And that's what's happening to Tessa in a lot of ways. So I think Tessa has been given a bad break. I think people do need to move on. If all you got is her being an asshole and La Rosa Negra, you don't have much. And I remember when she came back a couple of years ago to TNA, or it might have even been a year ago, and I remember Moose really coming to her defense. And people were going after Moose. Like, oh my God. You're like, you hate Tessa so much that you're going to take it out on Moose? Moose knows Tessa a lot more than you do. And, you know, if you don't like what Moose is saying, then go pay attention to something else. I don't blame Tessa for being extremely upset. She has every right to do so. And, I think in time, if she isn't, and there's nothing to say that she is. So is she supposed to, in order for me to go further in wrestling, I can't be an asshole? It helps if you're not an asshole, obviously, but I agree. In 2025, people still using that, we made light. I even think I have the video clip still in the system. I think I still do. Is this it? It's unlabeled, but this might even be it. Let's see if this is it. We laughed at it. We even did it. Tessa, we're coming for you. Not coming for you. You gotta put a little oomph for that. Not like, Tessa, we're coming for you. No, Tessa, we're coming for you. The guy was smiling. Do you see the clips? Everybody was smiling. They're trolling her. It's not like, we're coming for you, you fucking... People are trying to troll her. They don't like her. So that's what they got. After a while, okay, you got to move on. That's my honest take on it. So before we get into your questions, how long are we going so far? We've gone an hour and 20. So we got 40 minutes left. Let's just wrap up this intimate discussion about, we still got the Sports Illustrated. You know what? Let me quickly get into the Sports Illustrated stuff, because this will segue to the Dax JD from New York nonsense. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. All right. Sports Illustrated came out with their 2025 year-end awards. And it got a lot of people talking because it is very, very, very heavy AEW. Okay? Plus, there were like 7 or 8 people that were part of the voting process. So I have the winners here, and it's not a big list. It's only about maybe, there was 10, but I found something interesting. I don't know if other people picked up on. If you look at last year's year-end awards to this year, they added 4 extra categories. And I think the reason why they came up with 4 extra categories is because they had to give it to John Cena for something. John Cena's retired. We got to give him for something. And to me, when you do that, that's kind of like, all right, your awards maybe not be as good as they should, And guess what? Sometimes there are people that you want to put it as an award, and because they don't win anything, we got to create another award just so they could win it. Trust me, when we used to do the Blackheart year-end awards 25 years ago, there was a couple of categories that we added to it because we wanted to have some people win. We didn't control who won and who lost. The voting was public. But we definitely created a couple of categories that we thought we were going to figure out who was going to win. So they added 4 extra categories, and I found it cute because it was like, okay, we have to give AEW credit. We have to give Will Ospreay credit. We have to give John Cena credit. But none of those 3 were part of the list. So we create an extra award so they can get it. And let me just run this down quickly. I want to give you last year's winners and this year's winners. And I will just give you my overall opinion about this list. It's going to surprise some people out there. Last year's Wrestler of the Year, Cody Rhodes. This year's Wrestler of the Year, Hangman Page. Last year's Women's Wrestler of the Year, Toni Storm. This year, Mercedes Moné. Last year's Breakout Star of the Year, Jacob Fatu. This year, Kyle Fletcher. Last year's Match of the Year, Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay. This year, Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky from WrestleMania. Last year's pay-per-view of the year, show of the year, WrestleMania 40. This year, AEW Double or Nothing. Last year's story of the year, the Bloodline Saga. This year, Hangman Page's redemption. Last year's rivalry of the year, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk. This year, Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page. Last year, heel turn of the year, Xavier and Kofi turning on Big E. This year, Naomi. Last year, best on the mic, Drew McIntyre. This year, Tony Storm. Last year, tag team of the year, Fraxium. This year, FTR. The 4 additional categories that they added: best in the ring, Will Ospreay. Comeback of the year, Ilya Dragunov. Promotion of the year, All Elite Wrestling. And Legacy Award, John Cena. That is your list. My opinion about it, they have every right to choose who they want. I don't agree with some on that list. Some are deserving. But here's another point. I know for a fact, trust me, I know enough of you out there who I interact with, that more people that tune into my shows favor WWE than AEW. Dave Meltzer's audience is much more of a fan of Japanese wrestling. I'd be shocked if 0.5% of my audience, friends, family, watch Japanese wrestling. Every outlet out there is going to be a little bit different. ESPN, especially being involved with WWE, will probably, and I don't even know if they will come out with year-end awards. Be interesting if they do. They might have to, because people will start taking notice of it. But they may weigh a little bit more heavy on WWE. It is what it is. These, at the end of the day, are opinions. If you agree with it, that's your opinion. If you disagree with it, that's your opinion. If you believe that Sports Illustrated is in bed with AEW, that's your opinion. 25 years ago, 20 years ago, people used to say, when we used to criticize TNA, people used to say to Kevin and I, we were WWE dick suckers. That was the phrase that was given to us repeatedly. And we used to praise TNA a shitload more than people realized. Now when people hear the archives, they're like, wow, I didn't realize, how much we loved the X Division and Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and everything else that was going on. We praised a lot, but we criticized a lot also. But, we had fun with Dixie Carter because people were giving her too much of a pass. And I'll never forget Cash Flow Positive. That'll be like the highlight of it all. So at the end of the day, my opinion has just as much worth as your opinion. As a writer for Sports Illustrated, as a writer for the Sporting News, as a writer for ESPN. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of opinion. So if you think that they're in bed with AEW, that's their right. That's their right. If you think the list is bullshit, don't even pay attention to it. That's how I look at it. So no, I'm not going to criticize. And they listed, I think, 7 different people who were part of this voting process. I'm not going to criticize any of them because that's who they felt were their choices. We watch awards on TV once in a while for movies. And sometimes a movie will win an award and be like, huh? I never even heard of that fucking movie. And it's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of a voting body, whoever it is. For Sports Illustrated, those are the people that they have chosen to vote on. Remember the guy from ESPN that gave WrestlePalooza a C? I give WrestlePalooza a C. People were losing their shit over it. Oh my God. They just signed $1 billion deal. Dude. Fucking even ESPN said it sucked. And I was like, there's one guy. don't care about this guy. You know, I'm going to weigh his opinion. Excuse me, sir, what blood pressure medicine should I use? Do you think I should have this extra cup of coffee? Do you think it's dangerous? What kind? This opinion. I don't care. Like, why appeal? Oh, yeah. My God. That's what Sports Illustrated. Look at Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Pro Wrestling Illustrated is an American magazine that covers wrestling worldwide. There are Japanese magazines that cover wrestling worldwide. Sports Illustrated goes out of the way to give names for people awards that 99% of the people or 90% of the people of the United States probably never ever watches. But in their opinion, that wrestler from Japan is badass, is legit, can work their ass off, deserves to be in the top 10, top 20, whatever it is. That is their right. You know, if they insist, we got to put a man, we got to put a woman, we got to put AEW, we got to put WWE, we got to do this, we got to include this, we got to include this, because it's the right thing to do. That's their right. If you don't like it, then just don't pay attention to it. You think I give a shit about the Wade Keller year-end awards? I don't care. It's his right. You think he cares about the Blackheart year-end awards that we're going to do in January? You don't care. The people that don't tune into my stuff, I don't want any website. Don Tony picks Dominik Mysterio is the breakout star of 2025. Do you agree? I don't care if you agree or not. That's my opinion. So I think people are taking this way too seriously. My friends too. You know, all right, whatever. It stroked Tony Khan's ego, little AEW's ego. You know, I mean, of this list, there are names that I agree with. Absolutely. There are some names that I'm like, if you really want to split hairs, I can give a pretty good argument why I disagree with it. But guess what? Even if I came back and gave a really good argument why Hangman Page is not, I'm just using anybody, Hangman Page is not Wrestler of the Year, and I start comparing him with someone else, I'm sure I could have a pretty damn good argument. And I might even convince 90% of the people to agree with me. But guess what? If I'm anybody at Sports Illustrated, you know what their answer to me should be? Not, you know, you're right. No, it's, that's your opinion. Again, I could sit here and play on emotions and say, yeah, Sports Illustrated, but that's their opinion. You don't agree with it? Fine. Everybody's talking about it. I just hope, this is what I hope. I just hope their opinions were genuine. Because, you know, I still find it cute, even to this day, when Pro Wrestling Illustrated had The Shield 1, 2, 3 as the Wrestlers of the Year. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. Dun, 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 dun. Like the magazine, I'm like, oh, God. But that's their opinion. Easy. So JD from New York, friend of mine, very, very critical of this. Personally, my opinion would be, fuck Sports Illustrated. If that's how you feel about it, fuck them. Don't even give any credit to what they say. But JD is very passionate in his views about wrestling. The reason why people in the journalistic world, in the media world, that got so upset with JD is because JD from New York has 175,000 followers on YouTube. If he had 35 like me, none of them would give a flying fuck. But JD has influence. And when you have that kind of an audience, even if you think what JD does is garbage, he's got 175,000 subscribers. Trust me, if you start analyzing his subscribers, you will not find 48,000 of them from Calcutta, India, that somebody could have paid dollars for just to inflate numbers. His followers are real. He might be on the opposite spectrum of how you feel about wrestling. That's his right. Just like a lot of people are totally against Dave Meltzer's views. Look, I still, here's a little revelation. I don't like to bring this stuff up just to prove a point. Last couple of days, there's been a war with Vince Russo, his co-host. I can't. Somebody please bring up his name. He's really good guy. I like his stuff. And Sean Ross Sapp. A lot of back and forth because somebody posted fake news that claimed that Vince Russo said something questionable about Stephanie McCare, which he had never said. Who's Vince Russo's co-host? Oh my God, I feel bad because I've been following his stuff forever. What's his name? Someone will bail me out. There's like a 6-second delay for everybody in the replay, and I promise I'll be very fast with this. What's his co-host name? Jeff Lane. Thank you very much, Schwartz. Jeff Lane. There was a big back and forth with Jeff Lane and Sean Ross Sapp earlier this week. I posted a Christmas video from WWE from like 7-8 years ago, whatever. Just try to make light of the situation. But here's a true fact that a lot of you may not know. I actually pay monthly for Fightful. I pay monthly for Vince Russo. I pay monthly for The Observer. I don't do it for hand jobs. I don't do it for likes. I don't do it to be respected. I do it because I enjoy their stuff. And I do find value in it. If I unsubscribe, I promise you, none of them are going to be calling me up. Please come back. They'll be like, whatever. You know, I don't do it for clout. I do it because I actually believe in what they do. Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody's right. Some people do things a little bit differently than others. Fine. I'm one of the weirdos out there that actually support both sides of the coin. But here's my point. JD from New York has a style all his own. He has a passion all his own. He has a viewpoint all his own. He has a style all his own. And it does rub a lot of people the wrong way. And yeah, karma is a bitch. With that could come with problems. Trust me. Back in the day, I learned my fucking lesson. You guys go back with me and you remember the early days of Facebook? Some of the shit, we had to stop shows and close the Facebook page down because of what was being spammed. It's not fun. I had so many haters at that time that they would spam the page with CP and animal abuse and violence and just all garbage. And Facebook at that time did nothing about it. You know, that's why we don't do Facebook anymore. People remember the Lex Express and how they would come after me trying to cancel me out. You know, I've been there, done it. With that style comes with a price. I have mellowed over the years, not because I can't handle it. I can handle it. I mean, what comes around goes around. If you could give it, you better be able to take it. But I've gotten older and I've gotten more mature. And there's enough times that when I go to my wife and I say, honey, I write something on Twitter. This is like 6-7 years ago. Honey, what do you think about this? And I would write like the nastiest, most catchiest insult to someone. And I would show it to my wife. And I'm like, honey, what do you think? And I'll never forget it. Towards the end, she would look at me and she says, how old are you? Did I marry a man? Did I marry a 16-year-old? Grow the fuck up. And I literally was like, fuck. And it hit me. And I'm like, grow the fuck up. And that's why, you know, my wife has changed me in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, I'm still an asshole, but I do it in a lighthearted, comedic way. I don't hate David Otunga. I don't hate him at all. I just, you know, I have an issues with, you know, what he says and why he says it and, you know, everything else. No, but at the end of the day, you know, if he could hustle and make the money like Maven and everyone else, we made fucking Maven Invaders in the early 2000s. The game still works. People still play it to this day. Maven Invaders. I made my own video game. Instead of Space Invaders, it was Maven Invaders. We tried to play it live on one of these shows a couple of years ago. I didn't have this bitter hatred for Maven that I want to see him get hurt. No, we were like, I fucking can't stand him. Let's just blow him up in a video game just for laughs, shits and giggles. But I try to back up my shits and giggles with knowledge, common sense. So JD is very, very, very critical of this Sports Illustrated Awards. And people are giving it to him all sides. And I'm sure at the end of the day, JD could take it. And I'm not taking one side or the other. I'm just saying this because I truthfully feel this way. When I did that Forbidden Door podcast with JD 3 years ago, whatever it was, we were doing it to have a conversation. But one of the reasons why I did it was because I wanted people to see a more laid back JD. Because I want them to see that, you know, it's not that he's fake on his shows. He's very passionate and gets really, really into it emotionally. He really gets, you know, remember what I said about Bron Breakker about 3 weeks ago when he cut that first promo on CM Punk? One of the things that I was told from people I became friendly with over the years, and some that know Bron Breakker, is that one thing about Bron Breakker is that he gets so into the moment that it's almost like the emotions take over and you almost feel like he actually believes what he's saying. Like, there's no hatred for CM Punk. He got so into that moment with CM Punk, you know, cutting the promo and pulling his jacket off, and you see like he kind of like got a little disheveled from it because he gets so into it. And that's a great thing to have because it feels real, but sometimes it could kind of screw you up. JD gets really into the moment. And some people absolutely can't stand it. Some people take it so personally that they will try to cancel him out. And, you know, listen, I fucking loved all the years that I was in and around indie wrestling. I miss managing. I miss doing the stuff for Frank Goodman. I miss doing the stuff for Fat Frank, God rest his soul, VPW, XPW, and everything else behind the scenes. But the fact of the matter is, you know, no one is interested in having me do anything with them, and that's fine. My time is done. For JD, House of Glory had to make an unpopular decision. They stopped using him because there were people that were bringing in for the shows that hate JD from New York and everything that he's about. And House of Glory, you know, let me put it this way. During the pandemic, people were so praising Tony Khan for not firing anyone during COVID. And the evil WWE for releasing people during COVID. You got record profits. Why are you letting people go? Well, it's because the investors are investing a shitload of money because you have record, and that creates the record profits because they see in a pandemic you pulling back. At the end of the day, you know, it's not about what makes you feel good. I don't know how many people that invest millions in WWE because they do the right thing. They make me feel good. You know, I think at WWE I get a heart emoji above my head. No, they see smart business. And in the real world, business is business. And, you know, for some people out there, they don't understand the real world. And the real world is House of Glory. Who are they going to have on their show? JD from New York or Mercedes Moné? As fucked up as that sounds, that, you know, if he's on that show, I'm not coming. You know, unfortunately, this is about business. And at the end of the day, House of Glory made the decision, and it was obviously a right business decision. It's fucked up that it had to come to that, but it is what it is. It's like the scene in The Godfather I bring up when Don Fanucci showed up and Robert De Niro was working in the bank, and they're during the Great Depression. And Don Fanucci's talking to the owner, and he's there with his little nephew, and then he leaves. And then the owner goes up to Robert De Niro, and he's got a sad look on his face. You know exactly what's going on. I got to let you go. But Don Fanucci is nephew. I can't afford both of you. It's okay. Now, Don Fanucci got his head blown off from Robert De Niro, so he got his revenge. But, you know, unfortunately, at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. And in the business world, this is what comes with it. JD understands that with his style and his substance, it's going to upset a lot of people in this day and age. And sometimes it will affect him. And in the case of House of Glory, it did. But at the end of the day, not wanting to do business with someone and even disliking them, fine. But then when JD starts getting heat for his comments, Dax Harwood reveals this. And for those that don't have video, Dax Harwood went to Pro Wrestling Tees and had a wrestling shirt made up of a caricature of JD from New York. Now, if anybody out there saw my thumbnail, I kind of made it, what it looks like without the fanny pack strap blocking it. But what that shirt is it's a caricature of JD from New York upset that he is not allowed at the after party. And it's supposed to be a whole bunch of people, media, at the AEW after party, and there's burgers and everything else, and JD is on the outside looking in. I bring back to what I said about my wife, okay? If I had that done with Pro Wrestling Tees and went to my wife and said, hey, honey, and I'm older than Dax Harwood, and I said to my wife, hey, honey, what do you think of this shirt? Look at this shirt. That'll tell him. My wife would have turned around and said to me, you want me to have children with you so you could grow up and be a fucking immature? Are you nuts? I don't care how much that made Dax laugh and others laugh behind the scenes. You're no better than anybody else out there. Just because you wrestle and just because you look like you could kick someone's ass, doesn't mean that in real life that you are a douchebag. And I don't know him personally. But my point is, if JD is such a douchebag, you don't make yourself look any better by doing something like that. To me, that's tacky. At the end of the day, if I'm JD from New York, I would be proud of that. This motherfucker is so upset with me that he actually went to Pro Wrestling Tees and says, look, this guy complained once that he wasn't allowed at an after party. Let's fucking rub it in his face. I want you to make me a shirt. Here's his face. Make me a caricature shirt that shows like a bunch of, podcasters, media in the background having a good time, and he's on the outside looking in. You go to that extent. What is that? You're legitimizing everything that JD's all about. If I'm JD, I totally understand how people dislike him. Trust me, there's things about JD that I disagree with completely. And there are things about me that he disagrees with completely. But I know outside of wrestling, this guy is not a bad person. This guy is not out to hurt anybody. This guy is not out to, get anybody fired. The reason why people get nervous with JD is because he's got 175,000 subscribers. With that kind of popularity comes with this. I guarantee you, I've been doing what I do since 1997. I have grown over the years. I've changed my views over the years. I have definitely mellowed out in a lot of ways, and I try to always think of, if I'm going to crack jokes about David Otunga or Maven or someone else, I don't do it to the point where I think that this person is really going to get emotionally upset about it. We have lighthearted fun about it. But, I understand in this day and age that you could really push someone over the edge, but words do matter. And we talked about it on Patreon Thursday. I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and he was telling me about this girl who, said a couple of things, and she got trolled on X. And they were telling her, why don't you take a cyanide pill or something like that? And she literally went to the park and hung herself. Not a joke. Not a joke. She got so upset at all of this hate that was being thrown her way. Like, Dax, what are you trying to accomplish there? Like you're trying to and this is dangerous. And you know why it's dangerous? Because JD's got 175,000 subscribers. Dax Harwood has millions of fans. And there is a lot of sickos out there on both sides. But doing that, you're trying to let me put it this way. You learn nothing from Dustin Rhodes. What do I always say about Dustin Rhodes? One of the most genuinely beautiful people in wrestling. I don't know him personally, but I know some people that know him. He is a sweetheart and just loves what he does and wants to help everybody. But if we're honest, for 4 or 5 years, when people were doing shit like that, and even regular fans just going whack job over the top on social media, everybody just sat back and said nothing. And then once AEW started getting it back in the ass, suddenly Dustin makes a plea for everyone. Can't we all just love wrestling? And I showed you 2 weeks ago. We scrolled down the page. Everybody was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where were you for the last 5 years? Now because AEW is getting it negatively, now suddenly, oh, can't we all be wrestling? You know, this is why shit gets worse, because there's enough whack jobs that have nothing better to do during the day than to see other people get hurt and other people, get canceled out. And doing that, if you think, okay, maybe he's going to pull back a little bit now because Dax is going to, all those, and there's wrestlers in AEW and outside of it that despise JD, that laugh with this as well. But doing things like that make you no better of everything else that you claim you have a problem with. So, look, I brought it up at the beginning of the show. This tweet that I posted in January, my dog's reaction to Coop, when they changed his name. My exact statement was, my dog's reaction to Coop, or COPD, or Nope, or Cope, like playing off on the letters. There's an old saying, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I could only think that maybe his longtime friends called Adam Copeland Cope. 99% of us are longtime fans of his and just find the change now in AEW unnecessary and just odd. I'm just giving an opinion. I'm not sitting here going, what the fuck? You sucks. What are you, retarded? What the fuck? You changing his name now? He's a fucking Hall of Famer. Cope? What the fuck is Cope? What the hell is that? It's stupid. You don't hear me say, I actually gave a legitimate reason why us as longtime fans of Adam Copeland, why it just seemed unnecessary and odd. And sure enough, they changed it back. But what happened? A whole bunch of people blocked me. And I was like, look at this. Look at this. Like, it's my dog laughing at the change. Like, it's unnecessary. There's nothing heinous about it. And people really got offended. I'm like, whoa. Something ain't right here. There's a little bit of weirdness going on. So in my honest opinion, JD, don't let it get to you. If this is what you do and this is how you do it and your followers enjoy it, you have every right to do it as anybody else. And if you truly are doing something wrong, let them hire lawyers and sue you. I don't want to see anybody do that, obviously, but, you're not doing anything illegal. You're not doing anything malicious. You're not doing anything, you're expressing opinions. And your opinions matter because you have a huge following. And if your opinions were legally wrong or reprehensible, then these people have enough money. Look at the situation with, who's that journalist? The one that had the issue with Jericho that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Someone in the chat room will remember. I'm glad he's doing well. Somebody reached out to me and told me that he's doing well. And I did a little research and he's doing well. Who's the guy that had it? No, not Ryan Satin. Who's the guy that disappeared from wrestling the last year and a half? Nick Houseman. Thank you, Copa. Nick Houseman. I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. Remember when I did Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Nick Houseman? And somebody in the media world reached out to me and said, he's doing well. He pulled away from wrestling. Now, do I know if Jericho tried to sue him? I don't know. There's rumblings that Jericho sent a legal letter to Nick Houseman. And if that's true, Nick Houseman doesn't have that kind of coin to defend himself. And if that's the reason why Nick Houseman said, you know what, fuck this with wrestling. I'm not going to lose my income and my livelihood. And I don't know if he's married with kids. He's not going to put his family in jeopardy. And he moved on. I don't know if those are the reasons. All I know is that Nick Houseman is doing well, and that's a good thing. All right. But at the end of the day, if these people truly, truly can't stand what JD's doing, if legally you're doing nothing wrong and there's an audience that want to tune into you, that's it. You know, you have every right to do it. Just as they have every right to ignore you and to leave you alone. But they think ganging up and trying to cancel you out is the right way to go. That is not the way to go. Because trust me, if JD, health-wise, something happens to him and these motherfuckers start celebrating, at the end of the day, you realize that the people who complain the most are 10 times guiltier than what they... Remember what I used to say about, you know, like the speaking out, and, you know, even with animal abuse and stuff like that, you look at the Me Too movement, not speaking out, the Me Too movement, and you saw some people in the entertainment world that really, really were hardcore, passionate about this Me Too movement, and then you find out that they did more crimes than anyone else because they had such a guilty conscience that, oh, let me, you know, really show everyone that I'm trying to help this way. They would never in a million years think that I did something wrong. Some of the people that are the most vocal are the ones that are the worst ones in them all. So very, very unprofessional thing to do. And Dax, at 40, if that's what gives you shits and giggles, what happened to the days of you painting your fingernails to play along with your kids, doing house and all this other stuff? You know, that's the Dax that we used to have fun looking at. The guy who just was a family man that was just trying to be the peacemaker. People remember when I made that thumbnail, putting him as the peacemaker? I thought that Dax would be the one to try to mend the fences with the Elite and CM Punk, the first fight. You know, that's the Dax that we all thought was. Once the podcast ended, it just feels like, you know, different Dax came out. Is this truly what he was all along? Is this what he has become? Is this what he has evolved into? We don't know. We don't know. All I know is that, you know, doing this, trust me, 15 years ago, I'd be laughing along with Dax. I'd be fucking laughing my ass. It's just like photoshopping somebody on something. I'd be laughing my ass off with him. But in this day and age, you know, to try to bring someone down mentally, because that's what he's doing. If you want to shut down JD's podcast, you sue him. If you want to post things like that and have people tweet nasty things, you're mentally trying to hurt him. That's where it gets wrong. And that's why I disagree with any of that. In this day and age, words do matter. You got to be a little bit more careful. Just because, and listen, I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but how many people have we seen online that we thought were tough as nails, and then you hear a tragedy happen, and then you realize, holy shit, you know, was that just a shield to just hide, masquerade like a lot of deep pain? What are you trying to do? What's your end game here? To make the guy fucking, you know, lose it? Like, what are you trying to prove? You know, I said for many months now, AEW has had its best year yet. And I explained why. AEW definitely had their best year ever this year. Not financially, but I've given the reasons why. And I truly mean that. So I'm praising AEW in a lot of ways. This is not good. And everyone out there in AEW, can't we all just be wrestling fans? You know, it'd be nice to see one of you call your own out once in a while. So I'm sorry if that went a little bit longer, but, you know, this is more than just about JD and Dax. This is just about the climate. And especially to close out the year, this is the holidays. You know, I mean, just It's the holidays. You know, this is unnecessary. It's unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. Come on. Don't be a lemon. Be a rosebud. I'm still amazed at that picture, man. Everybody except for one made it and made it big. It's amazing to look at that. Is that the, you know, I was talking to someone, is that the greatest faction of all time? Everybody's, no, the Shield. No, the Bloodline. That might be the best faction of all time. Look at how many people who became major stars. The Rosebuds. Dirty Dominik has a shoulder injury right now. He's supposed to get an MRI tomorrow. We don't know the extent of it as of yet. Obviously, the MRI will be the deciding point. No one in wrestling is a doctor. No one in wrestling can remotely, even if they have Dom on fucking Zoom. Dominik, let me see your shoulder. Oh, Dominik, that's a tear. Well, how do you know? I could see it. He's a little purple spot there. That's a tear. No, Dominik, you'll be out 7 months. He's got to get the MRI first. No one knows. Let's hope. Look, no secret, I'm a huge fan of Dominik Mysterio. Let's hope that the injury is not major and he is not going to miss. Because remember, he's a double champion right now. He's a double champion. And their guy's going to be out for an extended period of time. Man, that sucks. Dominik Mysterio, I've been on that bandwagon for many years now. You guys know that. He's one of my favorites. And to see him, you know, because I grew up. I've been watching wrestling since 79, so I remember when Ray first got into wrestling. And to see Dominik, you know, come in, this week is the anniversary where he gets arrested. He goes to see his dad for the holidays. He's with Rhea Ripley. And Dominik's mother slaps Rhea Ripley in the face, and then the police show up and they arrest Dominik. Mommy, bail me out. Call Finn. Call JD. You know, Dominik Mysterio, man, him and Bron Breakker, you know, for the last, you know, year or so, 2 years, been fucking great, man. And, you know, this would be a huge blow to wrestling if Dominik has any serious injury. So let's hope that it's not serious. So, all right. We have more shout-outs. This is somebody tuning in from Australia. 90s guy. Longtime listener from Brisbane, Australia. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. You too, my friend. Definitely love my friends out in Australia. Just even going back to the early days of the Minority Report, when we'd be live and people would be in the chat room and they'd be from Australia and we'd be like, no, you're not. There's no way that you're up at this time tuning into us. And then we get an email. It says .au at the end. Like, okay, all right. we are wrong. I love everyone who tunes in, you know, but our Aussies out there, you know, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to do this. You know, at the end of the day, like I said, when we make our presence bigger on YouTube in 2026, it's not because we're going to fuck with anyone or be assholes. We're just about having fun and at the same time, have some common sense and just try to be real. You know, just try to be real. Sometimes it's not the most popular thing to do and it may not get you the most, you know, exposure. But one thing is for sure, everything that we talk about doesn't ever seem to get old, right? You know, you could replay some of the things we talk about and it's still relevant years from now. So I appreciate you, 90s guy. And trust me, I loved the 90s. Didn't Jericho used to host the show? I love the 80s Strikes Back, I think it was. And I think he did the 90s as well. I remember when Jericho did those shows. Thank you for that, my friend. Also, theme parks and things with Johnny. Thank you, my friend. He says, when Kev passed, he saw the real JD. He's not a bad guy. Some things he disagrees with and some, but he does see, but we did see his tears when he was talking about Kev. Listen, you know, I have talked to Jerry, outside of wrestling. And there is definitely, and I'm going to say this straight out, there's definitely a tough exterior that not many people get to break through of. And yes, that breaking through is not exactly, what is not a good formula for JD's show. JD has a tough exterior and not many people get to see inside of it. I will tell you that at the end of the day, that guy is legitimately a good guy. This is what he does for a living, has a huge following because of it, has earned those followers. You want to call it shock jock, you want to call it, just a dirty way to do it. Whatever you want to call it, that's his style and that's his formula and that's what works. And again, at the end of the day, the guy is passionate about wrestling. Whether you like his style or not, you don't get many people for this many years to be that passionate about wrestling. And the one thing that I think probably is the biggest misconception about JD is that people think that JD prospers when people fail. And if you look, it's so not the case. At the end of the day, we want to be fucking entertained. Some of the reason why I stopped doing coverage of some other shows is because it weren't fun to watch. It weren't fun to watch. When things are fun to watch, you want to cover even more. And that's why I want to expand a little bit more too, because I'm finding it more fun these days. I think it comes through on the shows. We're not. I don't ever have to check my blood pressure after the shows are over. I go in the other room. My wife says, "How was your show?" I said, "It was good." I said, on to the next one. I have fun doing it. It's about smiles, laughs. I think that's probably the biggest misconception. The better wrestling is, the more fun it is to talk about. And when something is questionable, you have every right to speak out about it. See what Sports Illustrated? Their way of saying that WWE wasn't very good in 2025 is by saying AEW is better. That is the perception of them. That is their opinion. You look at it and you would say, how are they better? Look at the ticket sales. Look at the ratings. Look at this. And some people will say, well, WWE lost ratings too, but WWE lost more viewers than AEW, which is obviously ridiculous when you think about it. Believe it or not, and a lot of people wouldn't know this, but Tony Khan a couple of years ago did an interview right around this time, if you look it up. And he was talking about the first big decline of AEW's ratings. And Tony Khan's exact words were, go look it up if you think I'm lying. He says, yes, our ratings are down 10%, but WWE's ratings are down 8%. So the point was, wrestling as a whole was down. But WWE's numbers, even though it was only 8%, it was much bigger because they have a bigger audience. So this is nothing new. When Dave Meltzer brought that up a week ago, and everybody was following, like, did you hear what Dave said? Dave is like, WWE's down too, but they're not, AEW's not down as much because the percentage is less. And I'm like, we've heard this before. This is nothing new. But obviously, either people just weren't listening a couple of years ago, or like, oh, that's good material for this show. So, again, it's when wrestling is better, I have so much more fun talking about it. And, that's the biggest misconception with him. So, at the end of the day, JD, good guy, man, really is. I know some of my friends on the opposite side of the spectrum are like, DT, what are you smoking? What are you smoking? Like, what is JD having, holding a hostage on you? Is he blackmailing you? Like, you could say it. I'm like, no, there's a part of JD that a lot of people don't know. And that's JD's prerogative for people not to see that side. But again, just doing what they did. Listen, if somebody did that with me with a shirt, I'd be like, good for you, man. I fucking buy it and wear it. I literally would wear it. I'd be like, when people say, wow, it's a cool caricature of you. Yeah, some fucking wrestler made it. This fucking wrestler with millions and millions of followers that gets millions and millions of dollars. Apparently, he got so triggered at what I said that he actually paid to have his shirt made up. Thank you. I literally would buy it and wear it. I'm not kidding. I would fucking, Dax, make one of me. Here, I'll even help you. Make one of me like 500 pounds. Look. Yeah, look. I'm so fat, I could eat, look. Don't make a shirt. Don't waste your time on me. I ain't worth it. It's the holidays, man. Come on, it's the holidays. Tristan, when Kane unmasked for the first time, I thought of Larry Fine from the Three Stooges. I laughed my ass off. I remember when Kane was Unabomb. I remember him, wrestling in, I think it was Smoky Mountain. I remember when Glenn Jacobs was wrestling outside of it. I know what he looked like, but just the way they did it, it that night felt like they didn't know what to do and how to unmask him. So somebody was like, come here. And maybe somebody was smoking a cigarette and they're like, here, come here. And they rubbed like black stuff all over his face. I dropped my glasses. They rubbed black stuff all over his face and let's cut a little bit of your hair. And you kind of like look like how I look when I get up in the morning. He looked like Larry Fine of the Three Stooges. I wasn't intimidated. I laughed. Isaac Yankem was good, man. I remember a guy that did an interview with Kane, and it's probably still online. And the first thing this guy brought up was bringing up Isaac Yankem, and Kane left the interview. And I'm not kidding either. He was like trying to bring up like a bad gimmick, and Glenn Jacobs was like, bye. I liked Isaac Yankem. I thought it was funny, man. Those fucking teeth. I had a relative that had teeth like that. They're not. Isaac Yankem was a funny character, man. I liked it. Roderick says, do I think the Cena Saturday Night's Main Event fan backlash comes from the match ending or the frustration from the overall retirement, the year, lackluster booking? I think a lot of the issues during the year were a small part of it, but a lot of wrestling fans, they have short-term memory, and that the first half of the year sucked. But if you're going to tell me, this is why to what culture? Bleacher Report, we're greater than F. We're greater than the whole year and F. You basically just said fuck you to AJ Styles. You just said a fuck you to CM Punk. You said a fuck you to Logan Paul. You said a fuck you 3 times over to Dominik Mysterio. You said a fuck you to everybody who Cena had an awesome match with. Grading an F. That was, we'll got lots of views from this. Assholes. Fans were upset because they wanted the happy ending. They wanted the perfect ending. They wanted just like, oh, smiley emoji. Feels good. I can't, what I said last week, I couldn't have said it any better. That's how I felt. I've been paying attention to what John Cena says the last 15 years. A lot of other people may have paid attention to, but refused to accept it. If you totally understood John Cena, the ending last week should not surprise you. How is it that I say, I don't mean to be morbid, but it's like a death, okay? I get knocked down and get up, get knocked down and get up, never give up, but then it's a point like, that's it. I'm in a better place. I've left wrestling. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm content. How is it that we get it so right and everybody else is so upset and we happen to say exactly what John Cena says? Exactly. I mean, I'm not no genius. Again, sometimes you may not like, This is the best way I could put it. I've been saying this for 28 years. Next year will be my 29th year doing this. I will be doing this now in 5 decades. No, 90s, 2000s, 2010, 2000. I'm in my 4th decade doing this. This phrase is the best way I could describe it. Wrestling is supposed to break your heart sometimes. Wrestling's supposed to break your heart. Sometimes it breaks your heart when you least expect it. In John Cena's eyes, a 20-plus year career, everything he has done leading up to this, and everything he does after this, and the Make-A-Wish kids still get the visits. John Cena is not dead, and in the end, that will not be overlooked because of a finish. As time goes on, I said this last week, as time goes on, people will understand it more. Just right now, people are not thinking that deep. Ariel Wani, not thinking that deep. Other wrestlers are not thinking that deep. You know, Jeff Jarrett, God bless him, the worst booking decision in history. You know, well, may the global force be with you. That's his opinion. But you have to think further down the line. This put Gunther on a totally fucking nuclear level. Now we're getting to see a side of Gunther we have not seen. Him doing this now and laughing and acting like he's truly, I said this last week. I said it a couple of days ago. I'll say it here and I'll say it again next week and months after this. It is so incredibly difficult to be a heel with nuclear heat in 2025. It is extremely freaking difficult. And Gunther is doing it and got a huge boost from John Cena. If Gunther could ride this and retire AJ Styles and then, has to go face to face with Cody and Cody stops him, if this puts Gunther on a different level, how do you criticize Cena? Well, he should have won. Cena's been winning for decades. Cena's entire career is not going to be judged in that final match. Just like Kurt Angle, who got a 6-minute bullshit loss against Baron Corbin. It ain't Baron Corbin's fault, but that was what it was. Does that overshadow Kurt Angle's entire career because his final match was a loss against Baron Corbin in 6 minutes at WrestleMania 35? No, it's not. Do you remember Hulk Hogan's final match? I don't really. Was it a house show at TNA? I don't know. Like when you really think about it, there's some wrestlers that you truly can't remember their true final match. We understand now. I will say this. There are some people in the media that hate fucking being wrong, that will not accept being wrong. So they got it brutally wrong last week. Well, you had some cute people who once Cena put the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Instagram post up, I saw some people in me, it kind of reminds me of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, The New Beginning. I'm like, oh, you're so cute. Like they said that like an hour after Cena posted the Instagram. Like, that's cute. But listen, fans are not thinking that deep right now. I don't have an issue with it. A finish of his final match, I don't need to have the Rocky ending. I don't need to have the warm emoji. Life is good in a world again. Because trust me, I guarantee you, if Cena would have won that match, you would have had some of these same people. How do you do worse than Jey Uso making Gunther tap by having Gunther lose again to John Cena? You can't win the big one. You want that to how many retirement matches could Gunther be in to recover from that? Like, how does he recover from it? You got to wait for the next person to retire? And then he beats that person. Oh, that person's already old. People are psychoanalyzing it. And that's fine. People care that much. Good for them. I don't have any issue with it. All right. How long are we going? Let's start bringing this home. Let's wrap this up in 10 minutes. Deuce says Rocky lost in the first movie but won the moral victory. That's how it should have ended. Go to sleep and never give up. Listen, my original prediction is that Cena passes out. And I think there still would have been that Rocky finish. Like, yeah, he didn't give up, but he also didn't tap. So, the ending is not really, it's almost like, both people get the shoulder up at the same time and the referee only sees one. Like, this is a decisive outcome. And we know that wrestling is entertainment. And Cena is giving you an entertainment, a reason why he did what he did. We know it's entertainment at the end of the day. When you hear, and listen, I'm not ragging on Ariel Wani, but when you hear him say, so-and-so lost his fight in UFC, and that's not predetermined, but here you can change the outcome because this is predetermined. I'm like, yeah. Well, how do you fix Gunther, going forward from here? How do you fix him? How do you fix him? You got people still chanting, you tapped out when Jey Uso beat him. How do you fix this? Who does Gunther have to destroy? Like, how do you repair that? And then think of that. It's very easy to say that, and then you got to look 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. What do we do from Gunther here now? Gunther is on a different fucking level because he made John Cena tap. John Cena knew that. Triple H knew it. Very, very unpopular. And again, Triple H should have read the room a little bit more and compromised. I think not tapping out and passing out is fine. That was my original prediction. That would have been fine with me. But there was no perfect outcome. There was no perfect outcome. The people who paid live got that magical moment, but where does that leave Gunther? It kind of feels like a Hogan finish, if you answer to me, if you ask me. And Hogan finishes, when someone else is retiring, is not necessarily the way you want to go out. There was no perfect ending. There was no perfect ending. And if Gunther could take this to another level and feed off of this and have his legacy built from this, man, did Cena do a lot more by losing. In the end, Cena's a winner. WrestleMania 13, Rocky won. Austin's in his 30s. Rocky Balboa was 31. John Cena's in his late 40s and retiring. You can't compare it to Rocky 1, and you can't compare it to Austin WrestleMania 13. But one thing you can say is, in losing, they still won. They still won. In the end, John Cena will be looked at like that. John Cena, in losing, still won. Because in the end, things are in a better place going forward. There's more positive coming out of him losing than negative. I feel bad for the people who paid $1,000, $800 minimum to see his final match, who really thought. But again, I say this again, where were all these people 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 months, when everybody was saying Gunther is the odds-on favorite to win? Where was all their diatribes? Maybe if those motherfuckers would have screamed out more for those weeks leading up to it, maybe Triple H would have taken notice. Hey, Ariel Helwani doesn't think this is a good idea. The wrestling audience, they're all crapping about it. We still have 2 weeks left. Maybe we could come up with a different scenario. No, they were all silent. They were all quiet about it. They're talking about TKO's prices. Everything's getting expensive, even though they're not spending no money on it. And then they wait until after Cena loses and they have conniptions. No. Nope. Guardian Cast says Gunther was the right call, but Cena tapping was not what I would write. But he's just a ham and egger. You're not a ham and egger, and I agree with you. I think Cena, my reasoning for Cena just passing out in the end, he never gave up. But Cena is also sending that life message that, listen, I always preach never give up. But in the real world, there could come to a point where I did everything I could. I'm at peace. It's like someone who, listen, I brought up death last week. I brought it up, well, day before an Obi fucking photo showed up. It's, you fight. You know, I brought this up on Patreon Thursday. When you see athletes, musicians, politicians, and, you know, famous people visit sick kids, those sick kids, in many cases, are terminal. They're terminal. And I'm not trying to be funny here, but when they go see the kids, are they going to say to kids, man, you're fucked. That's it. You're fucked. You know, I'm here. Let's have some fun. You know, let's play games. Let's watch some TV together. You know, I'm really, really sorry, kid. You know, I'm really, really sorry. Is there anything I could do to make you feel a little better? You know, even though, you know, no, they're going to say, don't give up. Keep fucking fighting. They won't curse to the kid, but you got to keep fighting. Never give up. Never give up. Never give up. But in the real world, you know, we all meet our maker. We're all mortal. Now, you don't want to tell a little kid that because you want to give hope. John Cena for 20 plus years gave hope. And he will still give hope outside of this match. But in the real world, you know, in the end, you know, all right, I've been fighting. That's why I brought up death last week. I've been fighting and fighting and fighting. All right, I'm at peace now. I'm good. I'm not giving in. Don't pull a plug. I'm not giving in, you know, or pull a plug. I'm exhausted. I've done everything I could. I know I gave a good fight. And it's time for me. I'm at peace. That's what it was. Simple as that. I know. I could say it a million times over. That's not what we want in wrestling. That's not what we wanted. You know, when I grew up, Fat Albert. We watched Fat Albert. When I watched it, all I saw was a fat guy and some guy with some weird fucking hat over his head. Boop, 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 boop. I didn't know early on that every cartoon was like a message for the kids. And then at the end, as I got a little older and Bill Cosby, I know what Bill Cosby turned into, but as far as we know, it didn't involve children. I got a pudding pop for you. No. It was a message. Every show had a message. John Cena's been giving, and this was John Cena's, like, in his eyes, a love letter to wrestling, and this is how he wanted it to end. He was content. He was happy. He smiled. Wasn't mocking wrestling. Wasn't laughing like Triple H is making me lose, as some people said. It was ridiculous. How is it that we get it so right and everybody else gets it so wrong? I know it sucks to say that, and it pisses people off, and I still get mad when no one goes to these other people and say, what do you think of what Don Tony said? Fucking nailed it. Now you say it's too late. Now it seems like I'm being cocky about it. You know, when I said it a week ago, you know, nobody said nothing. The people who just had outrage were the one, and understandably so, because fans were not thinking that deep. B-Love, I miss Kev also. It would have been fun debating this finish with Kev. Even though I know Kev, good, he's retired. Good. Good for Gunther. Good. Tapped out. Good. Now we don't have to worry about Cena no more. You know, Kev was not a fan of Cena. He understood how important Cena was in wrestling, but he was not a fan. And, you know, I think even in the end, I think Kev would have been entertained by the way everything closed out. And I think Kev would have definitely said the same thing, that Cena is leaving Gunther in a much better place, because if he would have lost by, you know, whatever, the STFU or, you know, whatever, how does Gunther recover from that? Last time, WWE's answer to Jey Uso making him tap was, let me beat up Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. Let me disappear for 2 months, and when I show up, the first person I want to beat up is Pat McAfee. They hurt Gunther so much with that. And they hurt Jey Uso as well, indirectly. There was no perfect outcome last week. Thank you, Michael Gonzalez. I appreciate the kind words. Ryan says, what's my favorite podcast to listen to? I'm not going to lie. I don't tune into many because there's just not enough hours in a day. But I really enjoy Booker T and Brad Gilmore. I am a huge fan of what they do. I enjoy Conan. I know, disco's political stuff gets a little... I'm a fan of Jim Cornette and Brian Last, even though when the political stuff comes up, it's like Miz. When my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut, whatever. When his political stuff comes up, my TV volume goes off. I have no interest in hearing that. My friends out there, I like to hear once in a while what JD and Jason and Joe are talking about. If I don't want to listen to wrestling all that much, I'll tune into a little bit of Spitball Media with Draper and, you got Drew. They talk, Drew with his show, they talk a little bit outside of wrestling. They talk wrestling too. There's quite a few. I tune into Conrad's shows once in a while. Even though I criticize Bischoff a little bit more recently, I do tune in to hear what he has to say a little bit. For shits and giggles, I'll listen to Maven because as I'm watching it, I know he's like saying to himself, like, yeah, this is going to generate revenue. That's just a few. I mean, there's not many that I hate. There's not many that I hate. I mean, there are ones that I just don't bother tuning into. I do feel bad how Jim Ross, and I know this is going to come off wrong, and I don't mean it this way, but I'm really, really sad to see how irrelevant Jim Ross has become. And if you see the statistics, you know what I'm talking about. Because the guy is so smart and gives honest opinions. And still, it's like, I feel like this mindset of, the old timers, they're outdated and don't listen to them. I think of all the older people that are in wrestling that are Hall of Famers. He still gives a very level-headed take on things. And I see like him talking some really, really pertinent topics. You see 1,000 views, 2,000 views. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe like no one really tunes in like they used to. And I give him credit because that motherfucker does not clickbait. And, there's a few that I'm very disappointed with. There's a few, like Stevie Richards, I like to tune into once in a while. James Romero is good. I, disagree with some of his stuff recently for obvious reasons, but those are a few. I mean, it's more of like who do I dislike? And there's not many I dislike. Even Meltzer. I tune into Meltzer's stuff a little bit. Brian Alvarez says Lance Storm is great. Lance Storm is great at what he does. Very, very good shit. Bruce Pritchard. Yeah, his Jim Johnston comments got a little bit, skewed, but everybody brings something to the table. It's just, Vince Russo I like too. Jeff Lane I like. Ben Amin I enjoy tuning into. He's very, very intelligent. There's plenty of people. Is it true Jim Ross was racist to Devon? I wasn't there. That's what Devon claims. I tend to believe Devon because he said it while Jim Ross was alive. A lot of people make claims when someone is dead. And usually when you wait until someone is dead, 9 times out of 10, you're making it up. And I don't believe, couldn't say anything because I would have been banished. Like, banished from what? You're not in wrestling for 20 years. What are you talking about? Like, I hate when people, after somebody passes, they come out with these incredible stories that, they didn't say nothing forever and then suddenly come out with some wild shit. That's why when I tell my stories, 99% of the time, whenever I told them, person was alive. And no one has ever called me out to say, you're full of shit. That's not true. That didn't happen. No one has ever called me out. All right. Let's start bringing this home. Ryan Evans, did I watch a true crime podcast? Joey and Josh from the United Kingdom. I have not. I watch some true crime, but I like watching the ones that cover like stuff from the past. A lot of the stuff of today is like, I don't know, it's just a lot of it is sensationalized. A lot of it is, I hate the Law and Crime Network. Who's that guy with the crazy hair? I know a lot of you know who I'm talking about. That's a guy, like if it was the 90s, seriously, like you would want to see him get the shit knocked out of him in a club. That guy looks like the shadiest of shade, but, they can't find anything bad on him. Law and Crime Network, I can't stand. Because especially, and you know what? Bill O'Reilly suddenly, fuck you, Bill. I didn't watch him for about 5 or 6 years. Suddenly this year, I found myself watching him. And if anybody ever watches Bill O'Reilly's YouTube channel, what did he start doing a week ago? When he talks about like mortgage fraud and all that, like he would do his rant and then put the clip at the end. Now he's halfway through a sentence. And like, Trump and what he said about Rob Reiner, and I honestly think, have you been a victim of, I'm like, fuck you. You throw in your fucking ad halfway in the middle of a sentence because you want force people to hear it. I hate when people do. Law and Crime does that. So, no one out there knows the guy with the goofy hair in Law and Crime? That guy, man, oh my God, he looks so shady. My neck of the woods, people would be like, that's cardboard gangster, man. All right, let's finish on a wrestling point here. Press Play says WrestleMania 40 was the once-in-a-decade peak for WWE. All downhill from there. Not necessarily, because they still have all the major players that can go. And in the process, you have Bron Breakker coming up. You have Dominik Mysterio coming up. You got Stephanie Vicaire becoming a thing. You got, Rhea Ripley getting to the next level. Io Sky. Remember earlier this year? When Kev was still with us? Remember? Grumpy Cat? That was a thing. We called that shit out months before anybody picked up on it. Io Sky was Grumpy Cat. Something happened, man. She took funny pills. And I say that lightheartedly. She took the funny medicine. Now she's happy, and I love her character. She is awesome now. She was Grumpy Cat for quite a while. Let's see. Do I think Breakker wins the title from Punk on January 5th? As of right now, I don't know. I would say no. Is it too soon? Like, I could see WWE's eyes. Okay, if Punk loses the title, then he's a favorite to win the Rumble or the Chamber. I don't know if that. I don't know if I want that. It'd be interesting because, if Breakker wins the title, and Breakker is almost guaranteed to be the main event or a semi-main event at WrestleMania. So that's possible. Right now, I'm not sure. I mean, we still have a week, 2 weeks for me to think about it. I don't know. I almost feel like, okay, get a little taste. But now with Austin Theory there, Austin Theory could end up causing CM Punk the loss. And that could segue to CM Punk feuding with Austin Theory. And then what do you do with Breakker? It's a little too soon. I'll give you my prediction the week before. A little too soon. Raul says it's a little crazy to see Priest and Aleister Black still doing this stuff. Yeah, they needed Rhea Ripley this past week. I'm not complaining. Thank you again for the coffee. That was awesome, man. I'm going to be wired tonight. Holiday Blend, Starbucks, for 2-0. Awesome. Yeah, they're still doing it. But I will tell you, we're not doing awards yet. We'll do them in January. But I think Damian Priest had a really disappointing 2025. I wouldn't call it disappointing because, look, he's still doing a lot of shit. But, you know, if we, like, gave, like, the irrelevant award of the year, like, he has become, like, who's the wrestler who became so much more irrelevant in 2025 compared to 2024? I would kind of lean towards Jacob Fatu, but he's about to come back, even though it's end of the year. Creatively, they're trying to figure out how to segue him, like, really deep back in. I feel like Damian Priest definitely is one of those that became much more irrelevant, which is sad. Sunshine or Precious? That's a good one. I probably would go with Precious. I think Precious. I think I would go Precious. Where the fuck is Apollo Crews? Well, it's almost 11 p.m. He's probably in bed, maybe watching a little TV. It's late. That's something I've been doing on the show since the 90s. When we used to do the shows 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, someone would say, you know, like, where's Booker T? I say, he's probably fucking sleeping. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. What do you think? And people would be like, that's not what I mean. Did I see the Cody and Drew segment? What are my thoughts? My thoughts are this. I never thought that Cody could lose the championship before WrestleMania. Now I'm starting to think, you know what? We might see Drew McIntyre become world champion before WrestleMania. They have definitely made the argument that they could be positioning Drew. If Drew loses this after everything is said and done, I don't know what you do with Drew next. And you can't simply just, let's move him to Raw. Because don't forget, guys, no one is bringing this up. I'll bring it up. I haven't heard one person bring it up. Is WWE bringing the transfer window back? What's that emoji? I feel like Brian Alvarez looking the other way. If you like what we do, hit that like button and subscribe. Are they bringing the transfer window back? We're right around transfer window time. If they do transfer window, I hope they don't do that with Drew. I think Drew has a legitimate shot at winning that championship. Yeah, I think him losing against Cody again would really hurt. But a lot of people are now thinking Gunther challenges Cody. Like Gunther wins the Royal Rumble and challenges Cody at WrestleMania. Even though most of us want to see Gunther and Brock Lesnar. But man, if they're going to continue this storyline with Cena, Gunther going up with Cody, that'd be pretty fucking interesting. Because then you get Cody on Raw a little bit more, and Netflix, you know, and getting a little additional rub. Remember when Mama Rhodes, remember the whole thing with Dwayne? That happened on Raw. You know, and you know, Cody was a SmackDown guy. So anything to kind of get a little extra exposure there, that's an easy way to do it. Do I think that Liv will win the Rumble and the title at Mania? I think Liv has a chance of winning the Rumble or the Chamber. I haven't decided yet. Like I said last week, like Gunther should not win the Chamber. Gunther doesn't come off as somebody who should win the Chamber. Gunther's someone who should come in the Royal Rumble at number 1 and win the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of want, like, record, he was in there 89 minutes or 148 minutes and won the whole thing. I'm not sure yet. You know, plus, it seems like they want Liv and Roxanne Perez to become women's tag champs. Who knows? Who knows? I think it's a little too soon. It's a little too soon. Dominik, what NXT stars do I think would debut at the Royal Rumble? I don't know if it's really like a debut. I mean, you know, Trick Williams now, I believe they said he's listed as a SmackDown guy, so Trick is going to be in the Rumble for sure. We could see Kalani Jordan in the Rumble. You could see Lola Vice in the Rumble. I personally think you're not going to see many NXT stars in the Royal Rumble unless they're going to be promoted to the main roster. And, the problem is the way they've been using NXT lately. There's a few people in NXT right now that you start thinking like, is WWE positioning them to the main roster? So, no, there's only 30 spots. And last year they did not use many in NXT. I don't think you have many in NXT. You might have one or two, but I think it might be more of let's see who comes to the main roster. My favorite New York rapper of all time, Boris? Favorite New York? Well, it'll always be Run DMC. I mean, I was always a massive fan of Run DMC. Kind of got me in trouble, when I was a kid for obvious reasons, but my all-time, it's them. I still remember 83, just hearing them for the first time, and they were at the Funhouse, and I never went and saw them live, other than Fresh Fest 84. But they will always be my favorite hip-hop of all time. Doesn't mean I don't have a lot of other favorites. Is Eric B. and Rakim? No, I don't think they're from New York. But there's many people that I grew up enjoying. Vladimir Kozlov, WWE. Gunther is less intimidating version of Kozlov. He loves WWE. Believe it or not, I think last week or this week was the debut. I think it was last week was the debut of Kozlov. He showed up that one time on TV and then disappeared. He did the Veer Mahan. Or he did the Emelina. He showed up once and then we didn't see him again for a whole year, I think. It was when he was in the crowd. I love WWE. I think that was last week, is the anniversary, believe it or not. Oh, yeah, that's right, Deuce, you're right. Eric B. and Rakim are from Long Island. That's right. I do remember that now. I think they were around the Hempstead, Elmont area. I think. I'm not sure. I haven't checked their background recently. My favorite return of the year, it's hard to say. Spur of the moment, I couldn't think. I'd have to look at the year in review. I mean, the Liv Morgan return was a lot of fun. Because the John Cena thing, was good. Nothing has been on the level of CM Punk Survivor Series. So, nothing really stands out to me right now. When we get to the year-end awards, that's when I'll really take a step back, and you guys will be able to help me with the nominees and picking people. But right now, I couldn't think of anybody really offhand. I mean, there's a few people that come to mind, but I would really have to think back about, oh, shit, yeah, I remember that. That was awesome. Last week was this past week was the anniversary of Bronson Reed returning during the Miz. Oh, wait, that's this week coming up. Is it this week coming up? Yes, it is. It's this week coming up. This week is the anniversary of Bronson Reed returning I almost said WWE. And remember the ladder match that Miz and Dexter Lumis had? Winner takes all. Dexter Lumis needed money, and he wouldn't open an OnlyFans. So the bag of money was on the line. Bronson Reed showed up, made his return that night. It was awesome. I rewatched the whole match, and I was like, holy shit, this was much better than I remember it to be. Miz and Dexter Lumis ladder match was much better than I think people remember. I'm telling you, that's why I love doing a history. Believe me, a few people are trying to get me to do the history show again this year, because all I would have to do is just add 2024. And actually 2025. But to me, it's too soon. I think we take a year off at minimum, and then we could add 2025 and 2026 to it. But it's a little too soon. Because these episodes are averaging 5 hours apiece. When am I going to add? 20 minutes more? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like repeating the same stuff. So I don't think bringing it back. I mean, look, the archives will be online. Maybe I'll re-release the archive every week so people that didn't see it a year ago get to see it again, or maybe want to enjoy it again. But doing a new show, it's not enough time. Definitely not enough time. got to wait 3 or 4 years, in my honest opinion. So, Ryan, did I see Bruno wrestle when I started watching, or was he retired? No, I started watching wrestling in 79 and he still wrestled, but in 80 he was feuding with Larry Zbyszko. His last match, I believe, was in 1985. I think it was a cage match, and he teamed up with someone against Piper, and it might have been Cowboy Bob Orton. I know it was a tag match. I don't think it was David Sammartino. In fact, I'm pretty convinced. I don't know if it was Snooker either. But Bruno wrestled his final match in 85. He was pretty much retired. He became a commentator in the early 80s, but I did see him wrestle a few times. I got to see him in 80 wrestle a couple of times on TV and then on MSG. I don't remember what they were calling it at the time. I think it might have been Madison Square Garden, but got to see him a few times. And then obviously once we got video cassettes and years later, the WWE Network 24/7 channel and all that shit, the stuff they had online, then I got to see a hell of a lot more. Tape trading was good because then I would see the best of Bruno and I saw lots of matches. And, Bruno, you can't compare Bruno to people of today because people would watch Bruno matches and get kind of bored. That's how wrestling was at the time, so you can't fault him for it. But he was legit, man, and he was very, very well respected outside of wrestling. And he was an icon to Italians. Icon. Amazing. Do I think we'll see Jade versus Bianca at Mania? If Bianca is able to return, I think that would probably be the match WWE wants to do. And it'd be very easy to put that together. I just don't know what Bianca's, condition is going to be. WrestleMania is still 4 months away, but Bianca, I think, just had the surgery and, they have to have the bone set and it has to heal. I don't know if she has a pin holding it in, but that's, pretty serious that she had to get another surgery. I do believe that she'll recover enough, but, it's too early to tell. Way too early. But if she is healed by then, that's the easiest match to put her in. You know what's good about it? You don't need a long storyline either. Plus, you don't even need a title. You don't even need Jade to be a champion. Might even be better if Jade isn't a champion at that time because some people were getting a little tired of Bianca getting title shots and almost handed. It was kind of like the Charlotte Flair treatment. But if you booted Bianca, people would tell you you're booing her because she's black. Remember those accusations that people made, which was ridiculous? People just started getting a little tired of Bianca, title shot. But they'll also realize that Bianca hasn't had gold in a while. So, all right, we are definitely wrapping this up in 5 minutes because I'm starting to lose my voice. My favorite match of the year, I again, when we do the year-end awards, I got to look back at the whole year. One of the matches I keep going to, and I know it's getting to be a broken record, Leon Slater and Javon Evans in TNA would have been match of the year for me if it wasn't for the Dark State finish. That would have been my match of the year. But the Dark State finish just ruined it. I tell you, it's just the way that match came down and everything hit so perfect that I popped huge for that match. Then I saw the end. I'm like, why would you do that? But I do think that could be a stand and deliver match. I hope they do that at Stand and Deliver. Ryan is asking me, since I watched wrestling in 79, what changed the most? How exposed it is, how much access we have behind the scenes, the interaction with wrestlers online, everybody having a voice. When I grew up, even in the 80s, all I knew as far as my wrestling fandomhood was my friends who were also wrestling fans and the magazines. That's all. I didn't know what the overall world thought about a particular wrestler. The interaction. And, it's hurt wrestling in some ways, but it's helped wrestling. I think the internet hurt wrestling in a lot of ways, but it's also helped it because it made it so much more global. And let me tell you something. It's pretty fucking awesome to me to talk about a wrestler and have somebody from Australia have a difference of opinion, and somebody from the United Kingdom that agrees with me, and somebody from Mexico who disagrees with me, and somebody from 3 blocks away. It is very cool to be able to, in the masses, be able to talk about people. There's good and there's bad, obviously, but to be able to globally know what everybody else is thinking is something we did not have back then. Even when you called the hotlines would put you in a certain direction, and the wrestling magazines as well. A lot of the interviews were fake. Kevin and I, there's infamous episodes of Kevin and I laughing our asses off on how much fake was in those magazines. Some of the stories written, some of the interviews, all fake. Everything fake. So, it's changed a lot. A lot of the, the exposure of it and everything else. Theme parks and things. Johnny, do I think we'll ever see Dakota Kai in the WWE ever again? Really misses seeing her on TV. I think she will return, and I think that WWE would like to bring her in as like a trainer. She's, listen, it's not about age, but she is a little bit older than I think some people realize. And I do think she has a future in WWE. I just think that Dakota Kai may feel that her best days are not behind her. So she wants to, have another run. Doesn't mean that WWE would not bring her in again, but I think, she could still go. I just feel when you see how deep NXT is, and now you got LFG. And by the way, this coming history episode is the final one of the season. There's an awesome Bully Ray clip. There's an awesome clip we're going to laugh at. It's lighthearted. Don't want anybody to get too deep about it, but it's awesome. And if you want me to spill the beans of what it is, it was only a couple of years ago that Bully Ray went on a rant that he doesn't want to see the minor leagues of the WWE. He doesn't want to see the AAA of the WWE. And he doesn't mean Mexico. He means like the minor leagues. And he goes in his whole rant why he wants to be entertained by seeing the big stars of today. And then literally like a year later, he's doing LFG. It's pretty funny. Like, it's lighthearted. I don't want anybody to fucking call him out on it, but it is kind of funny. And this is why I do the history show. We find a lot of little gems that no one knows about or may have totally forgot about. But Dakota Kai, I could see her being brought in as a trainer who could still work a match here and there. I just don't know how much Dakota Kai feels that she could still offer. I'm a little surprised AEW didn't bring her in. I'm a little surprised because you would have thought that, she definitely is one that could be used a little bit more. And she has such a good following online. She's good people. I don't know her personally, but everybody seems to like her. And she loves wrestling. And she could still go. So, like, what more would you want? I don't know. Maybe she just needed a little bit of a break. But, she's been more injury prone with the knee than I think people realize. And that could be part of it as well. A lot of people may not realize this, and I'm not trying to throw any controversy, but go look and see how many times Liv and Rhea Ripley have been injured. It'll surprise you. It'll surprise you. In fact, if Rhea gets injured again next summer, it would turn into the annual tradition. This would be like 3 or 4 years in a row that she's injured, like right around that time. So it is kind of interesting. Look, we don't want them injured, obviously, But you'd be surprised how many times they've gotten injured. But, they're awesome. So, you invest in them still. I know. Hopefully we get Kermit Rhea tomorrow. See, I can't do it later. I'm literally losing my voice, but you put on Raw tomorrow. We're going to win the tag titles on January 5th. We're going to show Asuka why we will get on. I love her. It just reminds me of Kermit the Frog. She does it all the time. Stephanie. Rhea. Like, she always starts off with the person's name. But she has this cadence about her. When she was in Judgment Day, though, much more animated. Much more, like, high-pitched. But now, if you watch her interviews with Io, she's got her arm around her, and she goes up to Jackie Redmond. Jackie. And you could even hum, like, how she talks. Tomorrow, if she cuts an interview, she'll say, and then maybe Oscar get in her face, and then she'll be like, now I sound like the grumpy man from the Muppets. That's how she talks. If you listen tomorrow, if she cuts the promo, you'll hear it. It'll go, sounds like you're humming, but that's her cadence and how she talks. What do you think? Do we keep this hat going forward? Or do we go back to Dogfather? Or do we go Flippy? I laugh when some people in the podcast will stop biting off of my look. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Which one do we use? Like, which hat do we use next week? I'll wear whatever. Just as long as I don't have to show my tits. Maybe we'll rotate. Maybe we got to change the look a little bit in 2026. Like Austin Theory now is like buzz. People say skinhead. Not skinheads, but Bron has a buzz cut now. Austin Theory has a buzz cut. So obviously the buzz cut is to differentiate Austin Theory before Vision and after Vision. So when you watch the best of Austin Theory in the future, when he's got buzz cut, and by the way, I know, isn't it weird how things segue? This coming week is the anniversary of Austin Theory's NXT debut. I have media ready for it. It's pretty cool to like have discussions, and it's kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. For the last couple of months, it's 6 degrees of the next history episode. This week is the anniversary of Austin Theory's NXT debut. He wrestled, I think, Roderick Strong and lost, but put on a good showing. And I can't remember who the commentators were. It was Nigel McGuinness and, oh my God, Mauro Ranallo and Nigel McGuinness, I think, were on commentary. So we'll share a little bit of that this week. Jim Kahn, thank you for the 5 spot, my friend. Creative is decent, not hitting the epic stride. What a shame in ring. The matches have never been better. I totally agree with you. I just feel that every year is not going to be a spectacular year. If you want to compare it to anything in sports, not every year is going to be MVP season. See, I don't like that Sports Illustrated added promotion of the year, because they didn't do that before. As far as I know, I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain I'm not. It's like, you're going out of your way to point out that WWE definitely, didn't have a spectacular year. But when you see this stock at $200 a share, when you see them making insane revenue, when you see pay-per-views, buildings being sold out, you see Survivor Series, San Diego, fucking almost 50,000 people. It's promotion of the year. It's not who had the best writing. It's not who had the best ratings. It's not who had the best. It's promotion of the year. It's business of the year. So again, it's all about opinion. But if you're really going to break it down, I mean, it's not even fair to compare AEW. If you really want to fucking say that, I would make an argument of AAA, having an awesome year. CMLL had an awesome year. But when you look at, when you say promotion of the year, you're no longer talking about what you see on camera. You're talking about what you see behind the scenes. And I look back at a year and I look at WWE and I see 50,000 people, 2-night events, 100,000 fans, $200 a share. I look at AEW, awesome environment, fun environment, great vibes, and, some weirdo saying, Max has 500,000 subscribers. Like, if you really start, that's why it's dangerous to use promotion of the year. Because what are you actually talking about? You're talking about, you're no longer talking about on camera. You're talking off camera too. And WWE, whether you like it or not, and they're making insane amounts of money and this big success, it's at the expense of other things, but that's why you don't do promotion of the year. It's unfair to do promotion of the year. I don't know why they added that category. If they didn't do that category, I think it probably would have been looked at overall differently. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that they added that category. But creative this year has been a miss. Listen, that's why I got so annoyed at Brian Alvarez's comments last week. This is the first time ever that the fans are really going after Triple. Like, what are you talking about? We literally brought up 5 examples last week, and people brought up others after we were done with the show. I'm like, do you even hear what you're saying? So yeah, it definitely was a miss, but there was still a shitload that was good this year. There was a lot of crap, but there was a lot of good too. The problem is that because of how expensive things have become and how things are being overhyped, and Triple H overhyping TV, epic, this, that, those are dangerous words to use. That's Dixie Carter territory. And there's definitely been some miscues. But as far as TKO goes, they look at the bottom line. When the bottom line is what it is, they'll tell Triple H, fucking say what you want, Pinocchio. Say what you want. As long as the numbers are coming in, say what you want, Pinocchio. So I agree with you. And Scorpio, WWE shills are hoping AEW goes down. Better pray that TKO does not sell WWE to the Saudis. I agree, and I still think that in 3 to 5 years, WWE will be sold to Saudi Arabia. I'm telling you, I feel it. There's something about TKO right now. They can never say it. They can never say it publicly. But I get this vibe like, we're not preparing for 5-10 years down the line. We're living in the moment, and we're looking 3 to 5 years, and then what do we do? What do we do? You know what I mean? Like, those there'll still be enough larger-than-life wrestlers around. But I almost feel like they're positioning WWE in a way that they could sell it to Saudi for like $30 billion. And that's it. That's it. But I also think if Saudi Arabia were to buy WWE, I think they would leave a lot of what's going on as is. Not a whole lot has changed as far as the structure of WWE. Yes, there's different board of directors and, people are answering to Mark Shapiro and Ari Emanuel and others, but at the core, a lot of the internal has not changed. So, I'm not saying that Saudi Arabia would be a better situation than TKO, but I'll tell you this much. Saudi Arabia would have bought WWE and it's no longer a publicly traded company. That might be a good thing. because right now WWE has to answer to the stockholders, investors, advertisers, and everybody financially involved. Saudi Arabia, if it's not a publicly traded company, I'm not saying that it won't be, but if it's not a publicly traded company anymore, then, if they have trillions of dollars in the bag, as long as they're pleased and as long as, the core is pleased, keep going. But I don't get paid that level to really analyze it that deep. But that's why when people bring up Triple H, I saw some idiot write the other day that there's discussion that Triple H could be removed. And then I click on it, and all it was just an opinion piece that Vince Russo said, which he has every right to say. I'm not criticizing the opinion. But we've heard that opinion for the last 3 years. It's not anything different. But I say this, if Triple H gets fired, who replaces him? The only person that comes to mind for me that I would be fine with replacing Paul Heyman, I just gave it away. Paul Levesque is Paul Heyman. It's the only person. There's no one else, not Shane McMahon, nobody. There's nobody that I would choose to replace Triple H with other than Paul Heyman. There's nobody in wrestling. Nobody. Zilch. Nobody. There's nobody. I don't mean to sound morbid, but we better hope that clock keeps ticking for Triple H. My father had the exact thing that Triple H had. Widowmaker is nothing to be, happy about. And can you imagine the stress Triple H is under? That is it's not like he's laid back. What am I going to say to lie this week? Blah, 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 blah. That guy's in unbelievable stress. Holy shit. Do not give Triple H a cup of coffee. My father's under stress, but, it's nothing compared to Triple H. So who do you replace him with? Somebody said Shawn Michaels. That's not bad, but Shawn Michaels is never shown creatively with the main roster on a huge scale. Like, he's great for the stars of tomorrow, but I don't know if he would be good for the main roster. Everybody would like him, but everybody in TNA likes Scott D'Amore also. And look at Scott D'Amore. I'm a huge fan of Scott D'Amore, but look at Scott D'Amore. He got let go, and you had a lot of people in the roster sending an anonymous letter. Bring him back. We're not happy. And they put Carlos Silva in charge, and 1 year later, they're on AMC. They had the highest, revenue, the highest attendances. Yes, they're working with WWE now, and you look and you say, gee, I wonder what TNA would be doing right now if Scott D'Amore was still there. Would they bring back Johnny Bravo? Like, I'm not criticizing Scott D'Amore, but my point is, I think the problem was that Scott D'Amore, it was like complacency. Like, all right, we're in a place and we're not growing, but, we're okay and we're not growing, and at least we're not in a pandemic anymore, and we're not growing. TNA has looked so much different now in a year. And Scott D'Amore, for like 10 years, it kind of felt like TNA lost its identity. They lost their identity, and they tried to get it back a little bit with their Lucha Underground type shit, and their kind of like form of Legends House, and doing some whacked out stuff with and they had great performers, but I look back at the early days of TNA, I think X Division. I think AJ Styles. I think SEX. I think of Christopher Daniels. I think of Samoa Joe. I think of Kurt Angle. I think of, even early days of CM Punk. I think of the Knockouts division. I think of Mickey James. I think of, Awesome Kong, Gail Kim, the Beautiful People, and you look at all of that, and now you look at today, and it's like former WWE guy, and Bear Bronson, and, Mike Santana. And those aren't bad people, but it's like, oh, well, that's nice. It's like, oh, and they got Moose. You see what I'm saying? Like, they got to really build an identity that when I do word association, TNA 2025, what comes to mind? I guarantee you, if you did that word association of people now, I think when you say, okay, when I say TNA, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And then your answer would be NXT. You know what I mean? It's like, From the outside in, that's TNA's biggest problem. They lost a lot of their identity. Their identity has been a big problem for several years. Do I see NXT and TNA stars appear more often on PLEs and Saturday Night's main events in the future? No. Because they have a huge roster, the main roster, and it's about the main roster. NXT stars, you want to give them a little bit of prep, do a dark match. Do a main event. You know, and I mean like their main event show. Do those. They did that change like 2 years ago. It's one of the things that Triple H did that I really liked. I liked that and thank you again, Scorpio, for that. What they did was they started putting a lot of NXT stars on main event and giving them a little bit of that extra exposure. And it definitely helped. So, Ryan is asking, do I watch NWA? Nowhere near like I used to. And that's a shame. Pandemic killed them. They're not dead, but it hurt them dramatically. I remember covering Power episodes, even when Ricky Starks was there and Homicide was there, and you had, the question mark, all this. I almost said Tony Storm, the other Storm, the other white meat, Tim Storm. I mean, you look at them then and you look at them now, and they're a shell of what they used to be. I remember when Billy Corgan said it's a 20-year plan. Now you realize how many years have gone by, and like, Billy, it's now a 30-year plan. It's amazing how far they went down. And listen, the pandemic hurt a lot of people, but I thought the pandemic was devastating to NWA. And I want to see them get bigger and better. Definitely would want to see them. I will tell you, I definitely used to cover them. We did pay-per-view recaps. It's a shame to see how far down it went. But, me, that's different with a lot of other shows out there, a lot of podcasters. I want to cover things that I want to see. I never want to be one of those, the only reason why I cover it is because I'm doing a show, I have to cover it. No, you don't. No one forces you, this show sucks, but I gotta cover it. No, it's because you're greedy. Cover the things that you want to see. And when the other things get better, then you cover it. Then it feels like you're covering it because it's better. Some people cover things that they will only cover what they enjoy. I never want to be one of those that covers something and not like it. Like if I did food reviews, I'm not going to sit here, I'm going to have liver. No, if I don't like it, I ain't covering it. Because chances are I'm not going to give it a good review. If I go into it negative, anything that's bad about it, I'm going to emphasize. Just like AEW. Some people that cover AEW, you already have a negative view on it. You already don't like the product. You don't like some of the people. I'm not saying anybody that I know. I'm just saying just in general. And, now anything you don't like is magnified. Same thing with WWE. For the people that haven't been happy with the WWE creative, if you're going to go into it with a negative mindset, first thing that is not very good. You see, sucks. That's why I kind of like to cover things that I somewhat like. I'm enjoying to an extent. Because if I'm eating something, it may not be the best, but I'm enjoying it. I'm not gonna be like, well, it's good because somebody super chatted me $20. I don't want to do that. I'm not one of those. You could feel when people are fake. I don't want to say which Hall of Famer this is, but there's someone out there. I won't reveal who it is. One day I will. If he pisses me off, I'll reveal it. But I love when this person, and I have so many examples just sitting on the horizon. Trust me, when we do the history show, we have fun. And it's not Bully Ray, by the way, that I'm about to say. But when I do the history show, I have all my archives. I have old hard drives. I don't have any here, I don't think. But I've been doing this since the 90s. And we started putting shows online in 2003. So I got all my old hard drives. I keep everything. I'm a hoarder. I'm not kidding. I'm a legit hoarder. Not, like that, but, you think Meltzer's room with all those papers? I have that with hard drives and save files and notes. That's why I have all the audio clips, even the weird Captain Lenny stuff. I save everything. So there's a guy out there that has a big following, bigger than me, and I'm a little jealous, I admit it, and he'll have a take negatively about something with WWE. And you literally will watch a couple of minutes later, someone super chat him $9.99 and have a different viewpoint than what he just said. And you actually hear him say, Joshua, I didn't think of it like that. But since you put it that way, I kind of agree with you. And I'm listening to this and like, so full of shit. And then literally a half hour later, someone will have the same take. I heard what you said earlier, and I agree with you that, and then he just changes back. I'm like, oh my God. I could probably super chat him $20 and he'll say to me that he loves getting his M&Ms with peanuts. I could guarantee you I could get him to admit, I never really thought about that, but sometimes when you have liverwurst, sometimes you want to have bologna. Like I could just picture him saying that. So it's a him that I'll give away. I can't say who it is. Oh my God. For everybody that's been, angered, can I just say this in a positive way to close out this show? Because we've gone super overtime. When I've been showing everybody this the last couple of weeks, the Samoa Joe credit card from 2009, keep in mind that even though I crack jokes about him, when I show things like this, I didn't buy this thinking like this is going to be worth something years later. I got it because I'm a fan of Samoa Joe. I mean, people were so intrigued that TNA actually made stuff like this. Somebody wanted to see the back of it. This is the back of it. I'm a fan of the guy. I don't want anybody to think like I'm like trying to make fun of him. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's a legit champion. No question about it. So I just, I wanted to make that point because I think some people took it the wrong way. Like, I'm on a mission to kill his credibility. I'm like, I ain't killing his credibility. The guy has a Hall of Fame career. The guy is tremendous. But, I wanted to bring out that point. I'm a fan of his. I poke fun at everything. We should not be taking life so seriously. We really shouldn't. But I want to thank you guys. Awesome way to close out. I mean, we still have a show next Sunday, which will be the 28th. So we have one more Sunday before the end of the year. Now, a lot of you asking if I was going to be live on New Year's Eve. The answer is yes. I'm leaning towards 10 p.m. Eastern as a start. We're not going to simulcast fireworks. We're just going to have, just like we have today, just sit down format. If we start at 10, we'll definitely be on for at least 2.5 hours because we'll ring in. I mean, we'll do the countdown clock, obviously, but we'll toast a little champagne. I'm sure the wifey will make a visit. Maybe my doggies will make a visit. Bruno and Bella will make a visit. But I'm leaning towards 10 p.m. I'll make it official next week what time we start, but I was thinking either 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. I think 9 p.m. would be a little bit too much. 10, I think, would be a good balance. Because you got to remember, too, it's Thursday. No, it's Wednesday. So, it's a Wednesday. That'll probably be in place of the news report. I may get into some news if we have anything. But that doesn't replace the Sunday show. So New Year's Eve, 10 p.m. Eastern is likely going to be the start time. And we'll close out 2025 with a big middle finger up the ass. Not everything was bad, but there was enough that really sucked. And we definitely want to kick off 2026 the right way. But I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. You know, I know there's a few of you out there in different areas of the world that do not celebrate Christmas. And all I say to you is happy holidays, much love. And definitely would welcome some of your feedback. I answered as many as I could earlier today. But remember, when you post a comment, you're not just saying it to me, you're telling everybody else as well. And, you know, what do you think about some of the things I said tonight? You know, again, you know, I'm just giving you my honest take on things. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but also doesn't mean I'm wrong. You know, that's what we do over here. You know, we opine, we analyze, we give our takes on things, and we see where it goes, you know. And I just hope everyone has an awesome holiday, you know, on both sides. And I don't want to have to play that sicko Olympics again. But, yeah, we think we're going to play the Jey Uso one when we get morons on the opposite side of the coin, you know, on the WWE side, talking stupid shit. So we got to be fair. If we're going to do one on one side, we got to do it on the other. So Jey Uso will probably represent, you know, we'll try to mock the yeet thing. I got to think of a good word, a derogatory word where we can incorporate yeet with it. You know, I got to think about that one. I'm sure we'll come up with something really good. I have a couple of things in mind, but we'll figure something out. But everyone, have a good holiday. Much love. And definitely catch you all in the next one. Be well. Talk to you all again soon. Have a good one, everybody.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.